Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS secretary. You know, addiction typically affects about 10% of any population, but it becomes a national crisis when the addictive substance suddenly becomes available. And today we are facing a new addiction crisis because of the availability of synthetic kratom, which is also called gas station heroin.
Our focus is not on kratom or the kratom plant. Our concern is with the synthetic concentrated byproduct. It goes by several names. We call it 7-OH as the collective term. 7-OH is not just like an opioid. It is an opioid, and yet it is sold in vape stores, in smoke shops, in convenience stores, and gas stations.
And they're marketed for children. They're gummy bears. They're bright colors. They're candy flavored.
It's legal, but it's an addiction that's ruining lives.
So we are issuing a report from the FDA to educate doctors and parents alike. We want everyone to understand the risks. 7-OH is 13 times more potent than morphine. The FDA is going to be recommending that the DEA consider the synthetic concentrated byproduct of kratom called 7-OH as a Schedule I controlled substance. And so that's part of our efforts here.
Marty, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for doing this, because it also puts Congress on notice too, right? We're not only educating the public, but you're educating Congress about 7-OH. Fortunately, we have a secretary that understands addiction, and you're willing to stand up and actually take this on.
Thank you, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. This is a product that is today available in gas stations all over America, and smoke shops and vape shops. You need to have that conversation with your kids, and you need to have that conversation with your physician. Thank you all very much.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for being here today. We're looking forward to this press conference. Appreciate all of you being here. I'm honored to introduce to the stage Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill.
Thank you, Stephanie. HHS is honored to host today our friends in the Department of Justice. We look forward to collaborating with you over the next 4 years to make America healthy again. We're also honored to welcome Senator Mullen, who has been a wonderful friend of this department from the Health Committee. I've had the pleasure of working with many people on the frontier of innovation. Innovation in healthcare, innovation in government, innovation in business, working to make things better. But not all innovation is positive. Dark innovations in chemistry have exacerbated the addiction crisis in this country. Synthetic opioids like carfentanil, and the substance we're here to take action on today, 7-hydroxymetragenine. 7-OH carries a high risk of addiction on purpose. It is a powerful opioid agonist, many times more potent than morphine. We've seen a disturbing rise in reports of overdoses, poisonings, and emergency room visits linked to products containing 7-OH. These substances are often sold online or in convenience stores with no quality control, no dosage control, and no warnings. This is a recipe for public health disaster. Young people, veterans, and people who suffer from chronic pain or addiction are being misled into thinking that these are safe alternatives. They're not. Here at HHS, we're committed to gold standard science, safety, and compassion. We know people are looking for relief, but that relief must be grounded in reality. We owe it to the American people to act decisively, and that's what we're doing today, initiating a process to schedule 7-OH as an illicit substance. To share more, I'd like to welcome to the stage my good friend and colleague, the Commissioner of Food and Drugs, Dr. Marty Makary.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary O'Neill. It's great to be here. 7-OH is not just like an opioid. It does not just have opioid binding properties. 7-OH binds to the mu receptor, which means scientifically, by definition, it is an opioid. And yet it is sold in vape stores, in smoke shops, in convenience stores, and gas stations that are popping up all over the United States, and nobody knows what it is. It is a synthetic concentrated byproduct of kratom. our focus is not on kratom. Our focus is on 7-OH, which, according to the Journal of Medical Chemistry, is 13 times more potent than morphine. We have a history in public health of being asleep at the wheel. 30 years after cigarettes were widely used, then we started raising public health concerns. After heroin, crack, cocaine, and other street drugs became popular, about 10 years later, the medical establishment and public health community responded. 18 years after the approval of OxyContin by the FDA, we woke up to a terrible crisis that may have killed almost 1 million Americans. And then again, right afterwards, with fentanyl. We have a history of being asleep at the wheel. For the sake of our nation's children, let's not get caught flat-footed again. Public health is supposed to prevent disasters, not just clean them up after they killed thousands and thousands of people. Why do we get caught flat-footed time and time again? In my opinion, it's because of a disconnect between the ivory towers and the streets. Have experts been to the vape stores? It affects what we see in the operating room. I learned from living and working in inner-city Baltimore that you have to be proximate to a problem to understand it. We can't just talk about it on panels at medical conferences and in the ivory towers of the medical establishment. I saw on the streets of Baltimore how some of my patients that I would bump into switched from the prescription opioid that I would prescribe to heroin because they couldn't afford the copay. I've been surprised going to these vape stores at what I'm seeing. First of all, roughly 85% of the vape products are illegal vape products. We know that because the FDA publishes a list of legal vape products, and no cutesy, fruity flavor designed to appeal to children or a video game vape product device is legal or approved by the FDA. I've been surprised at the candies and gummies and drinks and ice cream cones. Here's one drink with 7-OH in it. There are other products that get added to drinks. Do we understand what 7-OH is at public health scale? Let's not get caught flat-footed again. We're not targeting the kratom leaf or ground-up kratom. We are targeting the concentrated synthetic byproduct that is an opioid. The Trump administration is deeply committed to preventing another wave of the opioid epidemic. And this is deeply personal for many people. It's deeply personal for the Secretary of Health and Human Services, who will share how at a young age he struggled with addiction. It's personal for a family friend, a good family with a good kid who is addicted, knows they're addicted, wants to stop their addiction, but can't stop. That story is going on all across the United States, and we don't have research or numbers or statistics on the scale of that problem. Let's not allow another wave of the opioid epidemic to catch us blindsided again. I've met some of these families. Let's be honest, there's also a lot we don't know. This may be the calm before the storm. It may be the tip of the iceberg, but let's be aggressive and proactive. Today, the FDA is announcing that we are initiating action to recommend scheduling of 7-OH as a controlled substance by the DEA. We are also releasing a report on 7-OH to educate the public, including the other names it goes by. And finally, we need to educate the public, including the medical community. I've talked to many doctors who don't know what 7-OH is. We need to be proactive so we don't get caught blindsided again. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to introduce DEA Assistant Administrator Tom Pervoznik. Tom, if you could come up here. He leads the Diversion Control Program Office, and he's worked with HHS to uncover billions in healthcare fraud. Thank you, Tom.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here. Let me start by saying DEA's mission is to protect the public health and safety, period. That means taking action when dangerous, unregulated substances threaten American lives. DEA just received the Department of Health and Human Services formal recommendation for 7-hydroxide mitragynine, and now that we have it, we'll review it expeditiously, thoroughly, and in accordance with the law. We don't play politics with science, and we don't cut corners when it comes to public safety. DEA is the agency charged with making the final scheduling decisions under the Controlled Substances Act. But we don't act alone. We rely on HHS and the FDA to conduct rigorous, science-based evaluations, including the 8-factor analysis that considers abuse potential, medical use, and public health risks. DEA will now begin the legal rulemaking process, which includes an opportunity for the public to comment before any final scheduling decision is made. That means full transparency, and all voices will be heard. DEA will do what we've always done: follow science, follow the law, and do what's right to keep our communities safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. One of the dangerous things about 7-OH is how much confusion it can cause. Many 7-OH products are marketed as kratom extracts or enhanced kratom, but in reality, they are the concentrated synthetic potent form that is an opioid. Our next speaker, Melody Wolf, Melody, come on up here, has experienced suffering looking for pain relief, and she's going to share a bit about her story and how the dangerous 7-OH product affected her life. Thank you, Melody.
So very good to be here today. My name is Melody Wolf, and I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I have 3 grown children, and I'm going to be celebrating my 39th wedding anniversary on July 31st. So I'm very happy to get to do this and have my family see me doing this today. I'm also a 20-year chronic pain patient. I spent 8 of those years in bed. Our home was a pretty dismal place. My kids had fans on in their rooms at night because they needed to sleep and they couldn't hear me crying in the downstairs. They were able to go to very few activities because I was bedridden. And they had no parent to take them. My husband was working, and so they missed out on a lot of activities that they should have been at. And to be quite truthful, my marriage was headed for a divorce. But remember, I'm celebrating my 39th wedding anniversary soon. I saw many doctors at the Cleveland Clinic, the University of Michigan Rheumatology, and so many specialists. I was taking up to 11 medications at one time from one doctor, and one of them being the highest patch count for fentanyl. It didn't really help my pain. It made it easier to take because it made me sleep a lot, it made me groggy, but you know what? It also made me mean. And like I said, our house was a dismal place, and I'm just so thankful that I found a botanical called kratom. And right away, my life improved. I was out of bed, I was doing activities with my kids, and I lost a lot of weight too. Being in bed for 8 years, it affects your health very negatively. So I got my life back. I've taken tent camping trips to both eclipses, and things just turned around for my family. And in 2022, during COVID time, my daughter and son-in-law lost their childcare. I got a call, "Mom, would you like to come move in with us for the year?" I said yes immediately. "Don't you have to ask Dad?" "No." So it was very, very thrilling for me to get to spend the entire year with my granddaughter. And it was kratom only the powdered leaf that saved my life. And now I'm seeing something very dangerous happen. 7-OH is being sold over the counter, and it is not the plant. It's a concentrated substance that is very dangerous to consumers. 7-OH is not what helped me get out of bed and get a quality of life again that I enjoy. I check out my smoke shops, make sure that they're selling products appropriately, that there's labeling on them, that they have a no minors, and that kratom is behind the counter locked up. I did that on Sunday. I said, "Where are your kratom products?" He said, "Oh, here they are." He handed me a 7-OH product. And I said, "That's not kratom." And he was very confused. He said, "It's not, I thought it was." I said, "No, it's not." I briefly explained it to him. And then when I told him that I do not take 7-OH, I never would, he said, "Well, I'm very glad to hear that, because many of my customers tell them that it takes them back to their heroin days." And there is the big danger. So this is what's happening. 7-OH is pulling people away from the opioid use that they've been trying to get away from. 7-OH needs to be off of the shelves. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Now we're going to hear from Senator Markwayne Mullin from Oklahoma, and he has been a champion in Congress on addressing the opioid epidemic. And so, Senator Mullin, great to have you here, and thanks for speaking.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You know, we all get involved in issues for purposes of either passion or personal experiences. And with the opioid crisis or the drug epidemic we've had throughout the country, it's affected almost all of us, either directly or indirectly. For us, my wife and I, it's affected us directly. You know, unfortunately, we have family members that we love and we want to take care of. And if you've ever dealt with a family member that is struggling with drug use and you're the caregiver of that individual, they go missing for days. And you're worried about your phone ringing. You're afraid to be away from your phone. The phone rings at 2 o'clock in the morning, you pick it up because you're afraid to hear what you're worried about 24/7 is they found him dead. And typically it's, "Hey, I got arrested, I got in a fight, I'm in trouble, got stabbed, can you come get me?" The list goes on. And I could give you horror stories of all the phone calls that my wife and I received over the last 20 years. And then when someone goes and they go to rehab and you get out, and because, my Lord, we've been to every rehab center you can imagine, and I'm sure some of you guys have experienced the same thing. And they're clean, they're doing better, and they find out they can go to a gas station or a vape shop or a skate shop or a bike shop, and they can find something that's legal for them to take that gives them the same high, and they can still pass drug tests even though they're on probation. And yet it's a road to the same addiction. And you see the pattern, you see it in their face, you see it in their eyes, you see it in their words, you see it in their behavior. And you're going, "Oh my gosh, here we go again." And you go get them drug tests and they're passing, you're going, "What is going on? How can they pass this? What are you doing?" "I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything illegal." But you can read it because you've been with that loved one so long, you see it. And you're helpless. And once again, you know where the road is headed. And then honestly, those of our family members that we've struggled with addiction, when they actually get put in prison, it's probably the first night you actually sleep well. Because you know where they're at. You know you're not going to get that phone call. You don't like it, but you can breathe for the first time. And in our case, the person gets out after years in prison, and they find it in a drugstore again.
And these individuals that are selling it know what they're doing. They know the individuals are targeting. They know the loophole and selling it as a dietary substance. Well, they probably do lose weight, but not for the purpose that we would like them to. And now that industry has grown from nothing to over a $9 billion industry. More than even opioids that are selling on the street, which is at $5 billion a day. Because they justify it. It's legal. But it's an addiction that's ruining lives. It's an addiction that's truly killing people because it leads them down a road that sometimes they'll never recover from. And we've known this. And for the first time, we have a secretary that not only has a backbone to do something about it, but he does it because he has personal experience. He understands addiction better than probably any of us in this room. And it takes somebody like that understands the danger that this causes to stand up and push against this, I say, illegal industry, because they're using every loophole they possibly can. And once again, selling it as an energy drink or a dietary, but yet the packages look like it came off the shelf of a cereal box or a candy bar or one of their favorite Mountain Dew drinks. The list goes on. They know who they're targeting. And so, Secretary Kennedy, thank you for standing up and actually doing something about this. Because this isn't anything new. This has been around for years. But without your leadership, this would never happen. So, from my family and every single family that has dealt with this, God bless you and thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those kind words, Mark Lane. Thank you to Jim O'Neill, to Tom Brzoznik, to Marty McCary, and to Wendy as well. Thank you for that, for sharing your story. I spent 14 years a heroin addict, and I've been 43 years in recovery. And so I spent a lot of time talking about addiction and reading about it. And typically in most societies, you have about 10% of the population that suffers from addiction. But when there's availability, that can become a crisis. And you can have, for example, in Yemen, virtually 100% of the adult population is addicted to khat, because it's available on every corner. And my addiction started because of let me say this, it was precipitated by availability. In April of 1968, 3 months before my dad died, the French Connection, the biggest heroin bust in history, heroin recovery, happened all together. They got out of one automobile 200 pounds of heroin, of pure heroin, and they ended up getting, I think, about 1,600 pounds over time. That heroin was then stolen from the evidence locker room in the Manhattan DA's office, and it was distributed on the streets of New York. And for several years, there was $2 heroin, so it was available in deuces. And there were people on every corner in Harlem, every corner in the Lower East Side, who were selling $2 heroin. And 72nd Street in Central Park, there were over 100 dealers selling it at that time. And, you know, I had iron willpower in other parts of my life. I gave up candy for Lent when I was 13. I never ate candy again until I was in college. I gave up desserts for Lent the following year, and I never had another dessert till I was playing sports in college and trying to bulk up for sports. I felt I could do anything with my willpower, but this compulsion was absolutely impervious to my will. And part of the problem was just the availability. It was too easy to get this drug for me. And if you look at the waves of addiction that Marty talked about, throughout history, they're all precipitated by availability. Morphine was invented in 1803, and during the 1880s and 1890s, there was an addiction crisis in this country. One, because of the availability of opium that was coming in through immigrant supply trains. And the other was there was a lot of Civil War veterans who had become addicted, and it was widely available. Cocaine was available in medicinal drinks and in popular drinks like Coca-Cola. And Congress, in response to that crisis, made heroin and cocaine illegal in 1914. And we had a break from it for many, many years. And then the drug culture began in the 1960s, where it was psychedelics, et cetera. But the real addiction crisis began after 1969, when that heroin became available. And you got a whole generation that was hooked on that. And then in 1970, Congress again acted to criminalize heroin possession. And we got a little bit of freedom until the 1980s, when there was the drug cartels in Mexico and elsewhere developed supply lanes through the Bahamas and Mexico that the DEA was not ready for at that time. There were huge surpluses of cocaine in our country, and the drug dealers figured out a way to market it very cheaply through a new form of cocaine called crack. And throughout the 80s and 90s, we had the crack crisis in our country because of the availability. And then in 2000, we had the oxycodone crisis because suddenly opiate pills were available, partly because of the agency capture at FDA that Marty is now dismantling. And with that, FDA's action abetted that crisis. And so when we have that availability, it turns into a national crisis. And we're still losing 80,000 kids a year. 3 years ago, we lost 106,000 kids to addiction. That's double the number of children that died, of American kids who died during the 20-year Vietnam War. It's 2 Vietnam Wars worth of casualties a year from this crisis. And as Mark Wayne said, all of us are touched. President Trump is touched. His family also suffered from addiction. My family, I lost a brother to this disease. I lost a niece during COVID, a niece who I raised in my house, who was like a daughter to me. I lost another niece to injuries, who's now a quadriplegic because of this disease. But all of our families are touched, every American family. The financial cost to our country is in the trillions. And what we're determined to do is to avert a 4th wave of addiction. You know, I became an addict because it was so available, but I still had to go to Harlem, or I had to go to the South Bronx, or I had to go to the Lower East Side. And now you can go to any gas station. And the people who are marketing these drugs, we were met with Pam Bondi yesterday, talking about this issue, and with these people from the DEA, and they showed us maps of the places where the vape shops and the smoke shops where this stuff is being sold, and they're around military reservations in our country, and there's, the DEA has done measurements of urine in our troops, and they're skyrocket. The more it's directly correlated to the number of vape shops in their area. They're putting them around schools, they're putting them in our poorest neighborhoods, and now they're putting them in every gas station. And they're marketed for children. They're gummy bears, they're bright colors, they're candy flavored. This is really a sinister industry. As Marty pointed out, our agencies have been asleep at the wheel for all of these other crises. And now we're going to wake up, and we're going to stop this before it starts. So I want to thank all of these ladies and gentlemen for their commitment to making sure that this does not happen again in our country and averting the fourth wave of addiction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Kennedy. We're now going to take questions from the press. If you can please keep your questions to the reason we're here today, and also give your first name, last name, and outlet. We have a microphone for you.
David Lim with Politico. Thanks for taking my question. In 2018, former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb said FDA scientists conducted an analysis suggesting that kratom compounds had opioid-like properties. And he said that there is, quote, no evidence to indicate kratom is safe or effective for any medical use. I know the FDA's warning letters and the actions today are concentrated on concentrated 7-OH products, but does the government today believe kratom itself is safe to consume? And then secondly, the DEA previously attempted to temporarily schedule 7-OH in 2016 before backing off after receiving public blowback. Is the Trump administration prepared to finalize the scheduling process, even if it receives similar concern now?
So first of all, we're not prepared to say anything is 100% safe, especially when it has psychoactive properties. But what we are saying is that our focus is on synthetic concentrated kratom. And you point out a good point, and that is that if we talk about all 7-OH, then we're not distinguishing to the public the risk stratification of the synthetic concentrated from the trace amounts of 7-OH that naturally appear in the kratom leaf and have for centuries and have been used in teas and other things. So our scheduling recommendation will delineate trace amounts from synthetic concentrated amounts. Great question. Thank you.
Hi, Lizzie Lawrence, reporter with STAT. I'm curious how many, if there are any known cases there are of 7-OH being recorded as the sole cause of a fatal overdose.
We have terrible statistics because if somebody comes in with 7-OH overdose, I'm not even sure a doctor would know to ask about 7-OH. Very few doctors I've spoken with know what's in these vape stores or know what 7-OH is. I've had to explain it to the dozen or so doctors I've talked to. So I think we're just starting to understand. It's very, very reminiscent of when we prescribed opioids to patients who didn't need them after minor surgical procedures, or too many opioids for those who did need an opioid. And we would notice some people were coming back for refills at a very high rate, but we hadn't put the two together because we hadn't recognized the addictive nature. So we need better statistics. There is a commitment from NIH to do some research to try to understand this, but this is not something where, you know, after 50,000 Americans have died from it, we want to start that process. Thank you, Lizzie.
Hi, Sarah Overmall, CNN. To David's question, what kind of regulation and guidance or scientific evaluation could we see in the future about natural kratom?
Look, I think there have been physicians who have had concerns about some claims around natural kratom. We have to prioritize what we work on. So we are going after the killer first, which is the synthetic concentrated kratom, and then we can look into that other question. But we think it's night and day in terms of the public health risk. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I'm Scott with CBS. You mentioned the doctors need to become more familiar with the danger here, and you've issued a letter, I think, today to doctors. But what, in fact, changes today? I'm sorry, are you issuing a new regulation? Are you going to do the scheduling? What actual change is HHS affecting today?
Yeah, so great question. Thank you for that. So a couple things. One, we're issuing a report, an FDA report on 7-OH, explaining it. We are putting that out there. We are, and we'd love for you to let Americans know about that report so they can learn. It has both a deep science component and a section for lay people so they can understand the issue. We think every school board should be talking about this. We are, number two, issuing a letter today to the DEA to recommend scheduling above a concentration threshold as a controlled substance. Number 3, we are sending a Dear Doctor letter to every physician in the United States warning them about this. And we're going to continue to try to educate the public. So a couple very definitive actions today, and of course we announced a couple weeks ago that we have let distributors to the retail stores know that we have serious safety concerns and specified those concerns. Yeah.
Hi, Margaret Manto with Notice. You said that you're thinking about this in terms of concentration, where it's like trace amounts of 7-OH and kratom versus, the much more concentrated product. Is this a framework that you think the FDA could use for other dietary supplements?
I think it's a good idea. Thank you for suggesting it. We do something called an 8-factor analysis. So our scientific team and the scientific team at the DEA independently try to evaluate, is there a threshold? And they look at animal studies and a whole bunch of other criteria to look at dependence and addictive thresholds. So we have a threshold that is calculated in 2 different mathematical ways to try to distinguish what we're talking about with concentrated kratom from the trace amounts that appear in the kratom leaf. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrin Asaf, Gray Media. I know you said this process is just beginning, but of course that takes time. So in the meantime, can you tell us how quickly can we see these products removed from shelves or at least made harder to obtain? And then what message do you want to give to Americans who are seeing this and saying, oh, I thought it was totally safe and maybe still today can actually go and get it?
So effective immediately, the letters are out to the distributors, and we've actually gotten some positive feedback from some of those distributors. So we're sounding the alarm with the distributors of the synthetic concentrated kratom. We also want to create a national conversation where parents talk to their children. Kids are sometimes using these substances and the parents don't know, and sometimes the kids are using it and they don't actually know what's in these substances. So this is a time, as with other new addictive substances that enter the United States, for us to have these conversations. And I hope school boards, places of worship, all talk about the illegal substances in these vape and smoke shops and gas stations. Thank you.
Hi, Liz White with the Wall Street Journal. Also very present in smoke shops and vape shops are high-potency cannabis products and synthetic cannabis products such as Delta-9, Delta-8, THCA, high THC products. And these have been linked in the medical literature already to psychosis. Is there a reason that this kind of well-established smoke shop problem is not something you're going after?
So I personally, in my writings as a physician, in my statements, and also the Department of Health and Human Services, have expressed serious concerns about people using these cannabis products. We don't want kids to use them. Cannabis use disorder is a real thing, and as you appropriately mentioned, there are now studies linking it to psychosis and even cardiovascular problems. So that is an entirely separate public health campaign, and it's an important issue. Thank you.
Okay, last question right here. Thank you. Amanda Seitz with the Associated Press. I was wondering if you could say what class you're recommending that it be scheduled and how quickly you're expecting the DEA to act.
Class 1, it is an opioid by definition. It will be ultimately up to the DEA to decide. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Disability doesn't define me. It might be, yes, I have a physical difference, but I do everything that you do, just different ways. Hi, my name's Alexis. I am about 320. When I was 2.5, my spinal cord got cut in half. In the hospital for 6 months. Lived with my grandfather from 2.5 till I was 13. I got lung cancer and stroke, and then I came to the hospital. I lived in the hospital for 6 years. I spent all my teenage years in the hospital, and now I live in my own apartment.
Alexis is human, and she wants to be part of the community. She deserves happiness. She deserves a life where she can flourish, and being in her own home, she can do that. My name's Matt Graham. I am the coordinated caregiver for Alexis Radcliffe.
You want a mushroom?
Yeah. It feels amazing to be able to have my own apartment, to have my own space, just to be independent and not have to worry about being in a hospital and just staying in one room. I was at the hospital for 6 years and they wanted me out. They said they needed the bed. And they didn't want me to have a say-so. That's why they sued me. They didn't want me to have a say. They wanted me where they wanted to put me, and that was it. So I said no. We filed a complaint with HHS, Office of Civil Rights. And then they called Disability Rights of North Carolina. They was like, hey, we want to help. And they did. They helped a lot. And in the end, we won and they lost.
HHS and the Office of Civil Rights had everything to do with her getting this home, and they have been magical for her. They've made her a life that she would not have had.
Are you ready? I'm ready. I'm a typical 20-year-old. I make TikToks.
Damn.
And I went to the Big Time Rush concert, and I was screaming and singing at the top of my lungs, and it was just like, oh my God, I'm actually here. I feel like sometimes we just get shut out, and I want to be open, and I want to be in the community, and that's what the ultimate goal is. If you want to be in the community, you have every right to be.
She just wants to be involved, and I hope people will let her be involved. It will take her and the community forward.
My dreams and aspirations are law school, work, hopefully go into politics, and just make the world a better place for me and for disabilities. I would tell Secretary Kennedy and Office of Civil Rights, thank you. Everybody should live the life that they want to live. Nobody should decide that for them.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome. It's a great honor for the state of Idaho to have one of our cabinet secretaries that is a big part of President Trump's initiatives from one end to the other. Obviously, we're talking about making America healthy again. As we talked earlier, it's kind of been our ethos in Idaho before we had a name to it. You get credit for the name. And I was visiting with the secretary, and we were talking about the things that we've done in Idaho, you know, just the last year or two, but even before that, of what we do to give individuals in Idaho all the liberty and freedom they can possibly have, and still make America healthier and make Idaho healthier. You know, to me, you know, it's the right thing to do for a person. It's even more the right thing to do for their families. And I think the president and the secretary have talked about it's a patriotic duty to do for the whole country. And that's just a big part of it. I know the secretary is going to talk about whether it's our Idaho Medical Freedom Act or what we're doing in the SNAP area or what we're doing in some of the other things. So with that, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you very much, Governor. You know, we had a meeting, a roundtable with some of the government officials before this, I pointed out something that during the COVID pandemic, 37 hours after he took the oath of office, swearing to uphold the Constitution, President Biden commissioned a team within the White House to begin censoring me and a number of other people. The court documents that we now have and the disclosures from the Twitter files and from Mark Zuckerberg show that I was the first one that was censored. There were thousands of Americans censored at that time, and once they figured out that they could censor Americans, that they could attack that central fundamental freedom of free speech, the founders put freedom of speech in the First Amendment because all of the other rights depend on it. If you don't have freedom of speech, freedom to criticize your government and its policies, you have a government that has that capacity to silence its critics, has a license for any kind of atrocity. And they began immediately when they figured out that we were going to put up with that. They began attacking the rest of the constitutional guarantees. They went after the rights to the assembly with social distancing regulations. They went after the freedom of worship by closing all the churches in our country. They kept the liquor stores open, the Walmarts open, as essential businesses. Closed all the churches in our country without due process. They closed 3.5 million businesses in violation of the Fifth Amendment guarantees of due process and just compensation. They violated the search and seizure prohibitions in the Fourth Amendment by the track and trace regulations. They went after jury trials. The Seventh Amendment says that no American should be denied the right of a trial or juries of his peers. In case of the controversies exceeding $21 in value, there's no pandemic exemption. The founders knew all about the pandemics. There were 2 epidemics during the Revolutionary War that almost destroyed the American Army malaria epidemic. It was the Army of Virginia, and a smallpox epidemic in the Army of New England. And they literally made an attack against the entire Constitution. Most of the states in the country went along with it. There were 2 that didn't. One was Florida, and the other was Idaho. But Idaho did better than any other state in preserving those essential American freedoms, and a lot of that was because of the leadership of Governor Little. I wanted to come out here I've been wanting to come out here since I got the job as secretary to congratulate him and to thank him for standing up for the American Constitution, unlike any other state. And I wanted to get out here in time, like I've done in many other states, to be with the governor when he signed this map waiver. And when he signed the bill prohibiting or allowing the prohibition, limiting the cell phone use in schools. But he moved too quickly for me to get out here. So I was happy to come out here for this proclamation. This state, more than any state in the country, stands for not only medical freedom, but healthy, a healthy population understands, as the governor said, that's a patriotic duty. It's a civic duty of every American. It's our patriotic duty. Medicaid is now bankrupting our states. It's 1/3 of the budget in many states, and it is growing exponentially. And the only way that we're going to deal with that is by dealing with the chronic health epidemic. When my uncle was president, 3% of Americans had chronic disease. Today, it's 6 out of 10. And it's 90% of our medical costs. When my uncle was president, we spent 0 on chronic disease in this country. Today, we spend $1.3 trillion a year. And as I said, it is rising exponentially. And there's national security issues. 8 out of 10 of our kids do not qualify for military service. We have fertility problems now. Teenagers in this country, teenage males, have half the sperm count and half the testosterone as 65-year-old men. American girls are hitting puberty 6 years early. Oh, something is wrong. The autism rates in 1970, the largest epidemiological study in the history of any country in the world was performed here in the United States, in Wisconsin. They looked at 900,000 kids and they were looking for autism incidents. They found 3 kids. The rate of autism at that point, and then many other studies that validated the Wisconsin study, was 0.7 in 10,000, so less than 1 in 10,000. The numbers that we released a month ago, 1 in 31 kids. And it's probably much worse than that because they did it state by state, and a lot of the states don't collect the data very well. California collects it the best, and their numbers are 1 in every 19 children, 1 in every 12.5 boys. Diabetes, when I was a kid, the average pediatrician would see 1 case of diabetes during an entire 40 or 50-year career. 38% of teens are pre-diabetic or diabetic. And so 1 out of every 3 kids, more than 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door is now pre-diabetic or diabetic. And this is the biggest cause, and and one of the reasons for that is because we're poisoning kids with food stamp program. So I think it's 18% of the food stamp program when it goes to candies or sodas, 10% go to sugar sodas. And so we're poisoning the poorest Americans, giving them diabetes, and then we're paying for it with Medicaid in the long run. And we're for freedom. If you want to drink a Coke, you ought to be able to do it. But the American taxpayer should not be paying for it. And we're going to end that system, but we need the governors, and other governors are now following Governor Little's leadership and applying to Brooke Rollins for SNAP waivers. So we're I'm very honored to be with you, Governor Little, and I'm very happy to be here in Idaho, which is the home of medical freedom, home of good health, and has a commitment like no other state, making its population healthy again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So with that, I have as often we do in this room, I have a proclamation from the Office of the Governor. Whereas Idaho proudly leads the nation in ushering the Make America Healthy Again movement through numerous actions that support healthy Idahoans of all ages, especially our children. And whereas the health and safety and well-being of Idahoans remains a top priority for our state, ensuring families, communities, and our economy thrives under strong principled leadership. And whereas the state of Idaho is thankful for the guidance and leadership of President Trump and his administration in keeping Idaho communities safe and healthy. And whereas the state of Idaho has been a national leader in restoring balance to federal nutrition programs through targeted SNAP waiver. Whereas executive and legislative action limited cell phone use in Idaho schools reflects a commitment toward our children's academic excellence and character development. And whereas the state of Idaho remains committed to protecting life, preserving medical freedom, and ensuring our children are taught with age-appropriate values in schools that respects parental rights and community standards. And whereas Idaho has prioritized investments in clean, reliable water infrastructure, ensuring long-term public health and resource stewardship for generations to come. And whereas these achievements reflect Idaho's steadfast belief in limited government, individual liberty, and the essential roles of families and communities in keeping our state strong and free. Now therefore, I, Brad Little, Governor of the state of Idaho, do hereby proclaim August 25 to be Keep Idaho Healthy Month in Idaho. And I encourage all citizens to recognize this special observance. Signed, Brad Little.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here for this panel, but more importantly, thank you for being a part of NGA and a part of this gathering we have. Governor Polis, Governor Stitt, thank you for your leadership. I'm excited to be able to facilitate this conversation today about something really that You know, the video that we just saw talked about how people work together across the aisle to get things done. Health and the individual health, for me personally, for my family, for my children, and as governor, as a public health official, you know, this is something that matters to every person in the world, every person in America. And we're very honored to have Secretary Kennedy here. He is serving, obviously, as the Secretary for Health and Human Services, but has worked in creating this Make America Healthy Again initiative. And, you know, we all are interested in what happens in public health. We all are interested. And honestly, we've often all asked each other, you know, what's happening with diabetes? What's happening with autism? What's happening with obesity in this country? What's creating the changes that we may not all have the answers to, but we all know that we should be asking questions and we should be elevating conversations around this. And it's nothing new. I mean, I remember, you know, my mother had children in a day when they had just come up with new medicines to do away with morning sickness until they determined that that was catastrophic. And the evolution of that knowledge was something that came through elevating a conversation around public health. So this issue is fascinating to me. It's of great interest and it's increasingly been of interest, especially during COVID, when questions came up like they'd never come before, that questioned institutions or questioned the way things have been done for a long, long time. It's fascinating. And I'm so grateful for Secretary Kennedy's work here, for what's happening, especially grateful for the way that allows states to carve out and create their own strategies to work with HHS. But my first question, and what I want to ask you to do, is just tell us how this evolution happened for you personally, how you found yourself in this spot, and why this matters so much to you, why you believe it's important to our country, and just what has caused this movement to become of such great interest to people in this country.
You know, I think my own experience was reflected that of a lot of Americans who are in my generation. We know what a healthy child is supposed to look like. I had 11 siblings. I had about 70 first cousins. And I didn't know anybody in my school. In the schools I went to, I didn't know anybody who was related to me who had a peanut allergy or a food allergy. And, you know, I have 7 kids and 5 of them have allergies. And other issues that afflict their generation. And I saw this explosion in chronic disease and was wondering why no doctors, no public officials, that our public health officials are not paying attention to it. And, you know, when I was a kid, my uncle was president, we had a chronic disease rate of about 3%. We spent 0 on chronic disease nationally. Today, the chronic disease rate is 60%. And we are spending $1.3 trillion. And it's the fastest growing budget item in the federal budget. It's growing 2% faster than the economy. You know, when I was a kid, a typical pediatrician would see 1 case of diabetes in his lifetime, juvenile diabetes, over a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 38% of our teens are diabetic or pre-diabetic. So 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door is afflicted, and we're spending $1 trillion on diabetes alone. And autism rates in 1970, there were a series of studies around that period. The largest epidemiological study in history of mankind was done in the state of Wisconsin. They looked at 900,000 kids in Wisconsin, and they found 3 kids who had autism. And they were looking specifically for autism. And today, the incident rate at that time was 0.7 per 10,000, so less than 1 in every 10,000 kids. And there are a lot of other studies that supported that, that validated that. Today, we released a month ago new figures that are 1 in every 31 American children. And it's actually probably much worse than that because the data, CDC's data is assembled state by state. And some states have very poor collection systems. California, which has the best collection system of any state, is 1 in every 19 kids, 1 in every 12.5 boys. This is an apocalypse. And the same is true, that's just 2 diseases, diabetes and autism. And then you look at, there's hundreds and hundreds of autoimmune diseases that started around 1989. The EPA was asked by Congress to tell us what year did the autism epidemic begin. They said it's a red line, 1989. So something happened in that period that changed the way that Americans, that dramatically impacted our health. It's existential for our country. Not only the cost, we pay 2 to 3 times more for health care than any of the European countries, and we have the worst health outcomes of any country in the world. We literally have the sickest population in the world. Our 80%, 8 out of every 10 American kids cannot qualify for military service. The teenagers in America now have sperm counts that are 50% of what 65-year-old men have. They have testosterone levels that are half of what 65-year-old men have. And so this is existential for our country. And, you ask about kind of, what happened. When I started talking about these, I was talking about it for 20 years, and there was an army of mothers who came out of the woodwork because they had those concerns about their kids. And I've kind of made it now, my life mission to figure out what's happening and then to eliminate those. A lot of it is because of our food. That's the primary, genes don't cause epidemics. They may provide a vulnerability, but you need an environmental toxin. And we know what it is, and primarily it's sugar and ultra-processed foods. And in the countries, I was talking with some of the Democratic senators yesterday and talking about this. In Japan, in the United States, the obesity rate was 3%. When I was a kid, I was a 10-year-old boy when my uncle was president. And it's over 50% today. In Japan, it was 3% in 1960, and it's 3% today. And it's because they don't allow processed foods into their schools. They have cooks, they give the kids really good food. In China, 20 years ago, there was virtually no diabetes. Today, 51% of the adult population is pre-diabetic or diabetic, and it's because they allowed 20,000 fast food joints to be built in China, and they started mass importing American processed food. We are poisoning our children. We're mass poisoning this generation of children, and the costs are now, it's bankrupting the state. Those of you who are governors, most of you are paying about 30% of your budget for Medicaid. And it's bankrupting us, and there's no end in sight to that vertical hockey stick graph line. And the only way, for years, Republicans and Democrats have been talking about how to reorganize the healthcare system, whether it should be private insurance, or whether it be single payer or a public-private hybrid. But all of those ideas are like moving deck chairs around on the Titanic. The ship is going down. The only way that we solve this problem is by ending the chronic disease epidemic. And we're seeing now these extraordinary initiatives from the states to do that. And, in Tennessee, you've got cell phone regulations in the schools, which are really, really important. You've applied for a SNAP waiver, and this is something that I would urge every governor to do. We spend $405 million a day on food stamps. 18% of that goes to soda and candy. So we are giving this population, the poorest population in our country, diabetes, and we're paying for it again at Medicaid. And there, you know, if you want to drink a Coke, you're in America, you ought to be able to drink one. You can make that choice. But the federal taxpayer should not be paying for it. And if you're doing that, you're, you know, it looks like cheap food, but bad food is not cheap. It's much more expensive in the long run.
You mentioned cell phones. Can you talk a little bit about mental health and the mental health crisis explosion that we've seen? I know many of us have read the book, The Anxious Generation, but aside from one book, just the data itself that shows the rise, particularly in young people, of anxiety and depression and suicide. And it's not just in America, it's globally. Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, we have a malaise in this country. We have a chronic disease crisis, and we have a spiritual crisis as well. And we have a generation that is purposeless, that is plagued by dispossession, by alienation, and the highest suicide rates in history, alcoholism, addiction. 2 years ago, we lost 106,000 kids to fentanyl overdose. I lost my niece. My brother died of a drug overdose. All of our families are touched by it. And it's all an emblem of, it's all a feature of, and a symptom of dispossession, of a lack of connection to community. Addiction is about isolation. It is a disease of isolation. It's of losing your connection to other human beings. And this generation is under assault. And I would say that primary drivers of it are social media, cell phones. It's so important to do these, you know, that so many states now are doing these bell-to-bell restrictions, or at least requiring that every school district have a cell phone plan, so you don't have to nanny manage them. You can say, you know, think this is something you have to think about, you have to come up with. In Virginia, they have bell-to-bell restrictions. The kids keep their cell phone in their backpack, so if their mom calls them, you know, if their mom needs to get in touch with them, she calls the principal, and then he can use his cell phone. But initially, when the schools do this, there's tremendous resistance among the student population. But in all this many schools I visited, very, very quickly, the students begin embracing it. And you go to, you know, in Loudoun County, Virginia, I went into an auditorium, a cafeteria with almost this many people in it. And the kids are all talking to each other. They're on the playground talking to each other. They're not looking in their laps at a cell phone. And when I polled the students, 99% of them said it was a good idea. So they embrace it in the long run. The parents told me that the kids now don't use cell phones when they're driving because they understand they're not attached to it. At the dinner table, they put their cell phones aside and they have conversations. And that's the beginning of restoring these bonds of community. The other contributor is food. There's an entire emerging body of science that links microbiome to mental health, what they call the gut-brain connection. And, you know, there's these extraordinary studies that have been done in prisons and juvenile detention facilities where they change the food. You can go on Google and look this up. There's dozens of studies, and the results are extraordinary. In one juvenile detention facility, and this is pretty typical, the suicide rates went down by 100%. The use of restraints went down by 75%.
When they just changed the food?
When they just changed the diet. There's a professor at Harvard who is curing schizophrenia with dietary changes. About 70% of diabetes, you can lose the diagnosis by changing your diet. And, you know, one of the things that we're urging, and violence went down in prisons by 47%. So one of the things that we're urging governors to do is to look at these areas and to to do what they can to start changing the diets in the schools, getting the food dyes out that we know affect behavior, and then changing the school lunch programs. When I came into office, we inherited dietary guidelines that were 453 pages long. They were incomprehensible. They were driven by the same commercial impulses that drove Fruit Loops to the top of the food pyramid. And we are going to issue by December, but we're probably going to get them out at the end of October, myself and Brooke Rollins, new dietary guidelines that are common sense, that stress the need to eat saturated fats, dairy, of good meat, of fresh meat and vegetables, and try to drive that. And that, when we release those, it will give everybody the rationale for driving it into our schools. It will change diets in prison populations, in the military, and elsewhere. But it's a new opportunity to reboot and change the diets in our schools. So that's I think one of the really important things that the governors can do. I encourage all of you to apply for SNAP waivers. Most of the states are doing soda, and that's the easiest one to do. Some of the states, Jeff Landry down in Louisiana did candy as well. Some of the other states are doing that. Some of the states are looking at getting rid of junk food and ultra-processed food. California actually has a very, very good bill right now that's going through the legislature that gives a very good definition of ultra-processed foods. And so, there's opportunities now for all of us to change, to live up to our obligation to our children and really give them a chance in life and change not only their physical health, but also their mental health.
Are there things we can do? I think about, you make a change, you've got to be able to measure it. We have health data. How are you expecting to, as you implement changes, to measure those, and how can states be helpful in that process? Data, information sharing. I mean, data's going to drive, and it's going to substantiate what we have done. It's going to prove or disprove an initiative that we might implement. Do you have thoughts or ideas about how states can work?
I mean, one of the things that was really exposed, there's two questions there, is how do we do outcome-based medicine instead of fee-for-services medicine, which gives everybody the incentive to keep Americans sick. The sicker the population, the more tests that can be awarded, the more money is made by doctors, by hospitals, by pharmaceutical companies and insurers. And so we need to, right now, the biggest issue is this misalignment between incentives and outcomes. If we want to have a healthy population, we need to realign those incentives so that people can make money, doctors, hospitals, et cetera, by making people healthy, rather than and charging for services. And that we're trying to do that at every level of government. We're changing, one of the things we saw during COVID was this information chaos, that the medical establishment and the government was not able to provide good data to people. And one of the things that I found since I came in was that one of the big problems at HHS is that it is siloed and that there is no sharing of data. And we're changing that, and we're changing it very rapidly. There are agencies within CMS that sell their data to FDA, NIH, and CDC. This is true across the agency, so there's no sharing of data. One of the other things that I've learned is that a lot of the data you can't really do longitudinal studies on, because most of it is through insurance, and the none of the insurance companies has long enrollment periods. The average enrollment period may be 2 years, and you're not able to see, you're not able to look at the potential environmental injury and then follow that patient for a long period of time. The only system that really has that is Medicaid. Medicaid follows people for 10 years, from 0 to 18. So it is the highest quality data that we have, but we don't control it at HHS. It's controlled by the states. And we're now making agreements with the states. I talked with Governor Stitt about this last week, and he's very generously offered to give us his data. Jeff Landry's giving us his data. Indiana, Mike is giving his data to us, Mike Bruins, and what we're going to do is depersonalize that data, put it on a public database, and allow independent scientists to actually study it and research it. And that is going to enable you to do more targeted treatment in your state. So there's a huge advantage in the state doing this. And then we can also have the advantages of these giant data systems that will really allow us to look across the landscape and say, do statins really work? Do SSRIs really work? Is metformin better than GLPs? And what are the advantages? If there's 5 different GLP drugs or 5 different diabetes drugs, let's look at the long-term health outcomes of those and see which one of them has the lowest all-cause mortality and the highest efficacy. And we can't do that right now. We should be able to. We are driving AI into our agency, I think, faster and more efficiently than any agency in government. And we really want to make HHS the template for the utilization of AI. And there's so many great things that we can do with it, with diagnostics, with prescriptions, with treatment, with telemedicine, et cetera. But we also can use it to really find out why people are getting sick and what makes people healthy.
We are pursuing that data sharing as well, because I do think if we could target our own individual populations with an understanding of that data. So why don't we open it up? We have a little bit of time left, and I know there are governors that want to ask questions. Kevin, you had a question earlier that you mentioned to me outside. You want to ask it here?
Sure, absolutely. First off, thank you so much for being here, Secretary Kennedy, and thanks for coming to Oklahoma. We had a great time. Oklahomans love you, and we also did the SNAP benefit waiver, and so we're excited about making Oklahoma healthy again. My question: you mentioned that there's about a $1 trillion cost in chronic disease. Do you have any stats when you get people healthy again? What it does to the economy? We had a economic update earlier about GDP rising at 1% this year in 25. But if you get them healthy again, not only the cost, but also what does that do with the workforce and getting people back healthy to engage in our workforce?
Well, I went on a long hike with Dr. Oz this morning, and he's going to be talking to you tomorrow. But he showed me a data point about a study that they just finished that showed that if you could get every American to do a 15-minute walk a day, it would save the country $150 billion. The cost saving, I said before, when my uncle was president, we spent 0 on chronic disease. There were no treatments for it. The first pill that you took every day was the birth control pill. There weren't any pills like that before that. There weren't treatments, and the cost. We are spending this money, and I'll give you an example. During COVID, we had 16% of the COVID deaths in our country. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. And if you ask CDC, why did so many Americans die? Why did Americans die at a rate of 3,000 per million population, when in Haiti they were dying at 14 per million population? Nigeria, they were dying at 14 per million population. Across Africa, it was 320 per million population, so 1/10 of our death rate from COVID. Why is that? And the CDC will say that's because Americans have such high levels of chronic disease. We have the highest chronic disease burden on earth. The average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. So what was killing them? Was it COVID or was it the chronic disease? They were hanging by their fingernails at the edge of the cliff already. And COVID came over and stamped on their fingers. But what's really making it, the real cause are not from COVID. The real cause and the cause we have, if a kid has diabetes, if a kid, COVID was killing, the average age of death from COVID was 84 years old. If you have a kid with autism, you have 75 years of life in front of them. And the cost of that, if we can stop the autism epidemic or dramatically reduce it, which I believe we're going to do in my 4 years, we can, the cost savings to our country will be astronomical. And diabetes is the same. We start getting kids to stop drinking soda, stop eating junk food, and start eating real food again. We're going to see immediate cost savings because people with autism, there's no cure. Diabetes, there's a cure. You can cure diabetes with diet. And one of the things that we're asking governors to do, if you have a medical school in your state, we're asking you to pass a law, and these laws have passed in about 6 states so far, and they're bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans. There's no such thing as Democrat children or Republican children. They don't face strong headwinds. It's an easy law to pass to require medical schools in your state to give a mandatory nutrition class. Doctors are not taught about nutrition. So when you come into the doctor's office, he doesn't know any more than you do about nutrition. And he ought to be, not the first thing he does should not be to give a 9-year-old kid a GLP drug. Yeah, in the long run, if there's no other choice, let's do that. But let's try diet and exercise first, and let's have a medical community that understands those things, and that's their first reaction rather than giving you a drug. And most of the medical schools do not have mandatory nutrition classes, and we need to do that. We're incentivizing to do that at HHS. We're getting them to develop really good curricula on that. But one of the things I said to the governors yesterday is what you do is so critical to what I'm doing. We have 40% of the food industry that has now pledged to remove all dyes, all 9 petroleum-based synthetic dyes. They come to us and ask us and say, we want to do this, we want your support, help us do this. They're coming to me not because they're scared of me. They're coming because they're scared of the governors. Because they don't want a patchwork of different regulations all across the country when they got a national product. When you push this legislation in your states, it enables me, it gives me leverage to these industries to change their behavior and to change the ingredients that they're giving us.
Josh. Thank you. Secretary, thank you for the time yesterday, by the way. And if I may, to the surprise of probably everyone here, I want to really, really commend you on pesticide work. The sugar work is absolutely right on the mark. The processed food work will save lives, for sure, and save costs. And so to those points, thank you very much. I also think where some of our governors have asked questions about savings, this part of this $4 trillion system, it absolutely will save a lot of resources. And we governors then will lean on you to reinvest it in good programs. My question for you humbly is, so right now, a lot of the core public health infrastructure is in peril. I mean, there's pretty deep cuts, and I know that that's not all you. I get it. You have the president's ear, Oz does with you. So we're seeing these big cuts, and we are worried about health disparities in our states. That is a very real problem for all of us. What I'm worried about is the cuts could threaten, rural health care. And it's very real for all of our states, particularly middle America. And so I want to know what your feeling is. Like, how are we going to be able to change diets if we lose our capacity to have nutritionists? How are we going to be able to change the trajectory of processed foods if we are cutting SNAP and not given the flexibility to make those changes? And again, I commend the work on sugar. We will do that in our state too. How are we going to do these things if in healthcare, and I'm a healthcare provider, as you know, if the lowest hanging fruit falls away, like mental health care, because those are the disciplines that will get cut if there's less resource available to us in our states. So just humbly, if we're going to do these things, which are very well thought out, how are we, if we have fewer pediatricians, going to give that advice which you correctly say is essential? So how can you support us with all of your plans if we're going to suffer these cuts?
And thank you very much. I really enjoyed our conversation yesterday. I'd start by saying this, that, you know, I told you this yesterday, I'm the Secretary of HHS. If it were up to me, I wouldn't cut anything in my department. There's no cabinet secretary, with the exception of maybe one, is Linda McMahon. There's nobody else, I think, in the cabinet who wants to see any of their budgets cut. We also support the president because, you know, I understand, and I ran for 2.5 years for president, and Americans are concerned about the budget deficit. We have a $34 trillion debt now. Within 5 years, 50% out of every dollar we collect in taxes is going to go to servicing the debt. In 10 years, that's 100%. And we're leaving this debt to our children, which is going to diminish their capacity to get health care and good food and all these other services. National debt is a social determinant of health. And I admire the president because it's not popular for any politician to stop spending money that's not his. And he is doing things that are very, very difficult and very controversial and looking down the road and doing something that all of us know has to be done. None of us knows how to do it. But having said that, he is particularly concerned about rural health, and I ran on that issue, and it's probably the issue that I talked to more senators about, Democrat and Republican, when I was going through my confirmation process. And one of the answers to that, and I think it's a really good one, is this provision for rural health transformation provision in the big, beautiful bill. And Dr. Oz is going to be here, I think, today. I think so. Talking about that, and it's a $50 billion payment now, and it's going to improve rural health. This is a lot of money. It's $10 billion a year for 5 years. To put that in perspective, we spend about 6 to 7% of our Medicaid budget on rural hospitals. So that's about $20 billion a year. So this is $10 billion a year. And it's going to go to rural health, so it's not trivial. It's going to raise the revenues of rural health care providers by 30% over the next 5 years. Dr. Oz will talk about the details of that, but every state will get money for it. Some will get more, some will get less, depending on the quality of your application and your arguments. The money has to be spent by the end of this year, so it is on a very, very fast track. The applications have to be in by September, and it's going to go for infrastructure improvements, for workforce improvements, for innovation, or all of these things that are holding rural hospitals back. And so it's a big investment. And it's an emblem of my personal and our commitment, the president's commitment to rural health.
And I appreciate that because that's why I proposed it to him, okay?
Well, thank you.
And it is going to help us incredibly. The question is, after the 5 years, and that is going to save us to a large degree, but after 5 years, we're going to have to continue to reassess because those monies could likely go away, and the governors will worry about Medicaid. But I really do appreciate that. And the last thing, forgive me for asking a second question, is you were saying about the future. Well, we just ballooned the deficit with the tax break. And so we're going to have to have kind of an existential moment sooner or later, because if we did add this deficit while we made some theoretical long-term cuts to our healthcare safety net, we're probably going to need you and others to influence the president to either lower that debt or find a new mechanism to help our country.
I mean, I deal with Roosevelt every day, and he's not, you know, he's looking at more cuts and cuts that, you know, are not going to necessarily be popular within my agency and other agencies. So it's a battle that we all have to continue fighting.
Jared.
You know, I appreciate that you're working on kind of finding out what's causing some of these changes, and whether it's autism and some of the others. But there's some that we basically know, and yet nothing still seems to change. And this one you mentioned, peanuts, and it just drives me crazy. You know, in Israel, the kids all eat the baba snacks, and they have peanuts, and they have 1/10 the peanut allergy rates that we do. Even the therapies for peanuts here, for peanut allergies here, are like these $700 a month pills that basically have small doses of peanuts. I mean, the whole thing's absurd. The pharmaceutical industry just packages up a teeny amount of peanut and sells it back to you for $700. I mean, we know that one. So why aren't we fixing that already and making sure kids are getting exposure to peanuts at a young age, like I did and my parents did? And I mean, it just sort of worries me that even when we know some of the others, nothing will happen. So like, at least some of the ones we know, why aren't they fixed yet, and how can we fix them?
Well, we don't really know what's causing the peanut allergy epidemic. A hypothesis.
Look at the Israeli data, because I mean, it's 1/10 of ours. And basically a very most popular kid snack is a peanut snack, and that's what is generally accepted as the reason.
If you just let me finish, that's a correlation. It doesn't prove causation. So we need good studies, and that is a hypothesis that's a very popular one. There are no allergies in the Amish community in this country, and they don't eat peanuts any more than other Americans. And, you know, I'll just tell you my own anecdote, and this doesn't prove causation. But I have a son who had severe, deadly anaphylactic peanut allergies. He made 22 emergency room visits before he was 2 years old, because he'd go to a birthday party and eat a cake, and there was nuts in the cake, you know, or there had been nuts cooked in the pan that made the cake before. And so I paired up with a guy, with David Koch, who I was in litigation with at the time, and who had a son who was born exactly the same time as my son and had the same level of peanut allergies. We started a group called the Food Allergy Initiative. We raised $100 million, and we poached the best allergy scientists from all over the world. We brought them to Mount Sinai in New York, and they had a laboratory that I visited where they would induce food allergies and other allergies in rats and feed them different things to try to find out what treated it. And I asked the scientists there, how do you induce an allergy in a rat? And he said, it's formulaic. You take an aluminum adjuvant and inject it into that rat with a protein. If it's a peanut protein, that rat will have a lifetime allergy to peanuts. If it's a dairy protein, he'll have a lifetime allergy to dairy. If it's a latex protein, he'll have a lifetime allergy to latex. That's the same aluminum adjuvant that's in the hepatitis B vaccine. We're giving, and many of those vaccines contain peanut oil excipients. There's a study by two scientists called Mawson and Cowlings, one of them from the University of Mississippi and one of them from Britain. And they looked at the same issue, and they showed that it's not only when you give what's in the shot when you give that injection, but also what's in the ambient environment at the time. So that if there's a Timothy weed outbreak at the time you get that injection, they found that you could have a lifetime allergy to Timothy weed. And vaccinated children, according to their study, are 30 times more likely to have allergic rhinitis than unvaccinated children. So we need to look at the aluminum in the vaccines and see if if we need to look much closer, and we're doing that today at NIH, to see if that has anything to do with this explosion of allergies that began in 1989, which was the year they expanded the vaccine schedule.
I just had, we obviously all the data, wherever the data leads us, but in Israel they do use the same Hep B vaccines and vaccines as.
They don't use anywhere nearly as much, and they don't give them early in life. We give that hepatitis V vaccine during the first 24 hours of life. No other country in the world does that.
We'll take one more, Wes. We are out of time, but let's go ahead. You go ahead.
Thanks so much, Governor, and I'll be brief. And Mr. Secretary, thank you so much. And we're thankful for the chance to also continue to work with you. As you know, Maryland was the first Democratic state to sign up for the prescription for the NGA's initiative for the prescription for a healthy America. And we are working on a lot of things when it comes to chronic health, dealing with population health, nutrition, et cetera. I do know one important component to that as well, though, is the future of the AHEAD model, which we're working on standing up. And I know if you think about cohort 2, I believe Vermont and also Hawaii are in cohort 2. So the question is just, how are you thinking about the future for the implementation and the standing up of the AHEAD model, and what can we as governors do to be helpful with that?
You know, those are evaluated case by case, and you're gonna have Oz up here in a little while, and he's the one who's gonna make that judgment call on the Maryland system. But you know, we support waivers that are helping people. We're encouraging states to become laboratories for innovation and for figuring out ways to deal with these big issues state by state. And, but he'll be able to answer more particularly exactly what's going on in Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I was just thinking, the people sitting around this table got into this job that we've gotten into because we care deeply about the people in our states, and we have decided to use our lives to impact their life for good. We all share that same passion for our people. It's the reason that we are serving to a person. And what I appreciate about you and your work is, I believe, and we see it in your passion and in your heart for the work that you're doing. It's because you care about this issue, and you care about Americans, and you want to lean into this in ways to challenge the status quo in ways that may change the trajectory of the health of this country forever. And for that, we are very grateful and honored that you came to join us today. So let us thank the Secretary.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, today we are making American health technology remarkably great again.
We're officially launching the CMS Digital Health Tech ecosystem to give healthcare providers, insurers, and software companies the tools they need to empower Americans with a 21st century experience on health.
The average Americans are tired. They're tired of waiting for access to their medical records. They're also tired of waiting for Washington to take action.
We're opening up the playing field so that the best tools can scale, compete on value, and discover new methods for making Americans healthy again.
Doctors and patients will always remain in control. We will save time, we will save money, and most importantly, we'll save lives.
President Trump, you've asked us to think big, you've inspired us to dream big, and with your leadership, we're going to make America healthy again.
The President of the United States.
And we have a lot of great people here, and we've been looking forward to this day, but we sort of look forward to every day because we have a lot of surprises most of which are good. Today you saw GDP was much higher than anticipated. And Scott, good job. Scott Bessent's been working, just got back from a little excursion and a meeting with China in Europe, and that went well. We've done very well with the EU deal. It's a very big deal, I guess. They say the biggest trade deal ever made by far, probably is. Just completed Japan and many other countries, and hundreds of billions of dollars is flowing into our country. We've never seen anything even close. And that's not me saying it, that's everybody saying it. And it's going to be something really, really very special. Maybe even more importantly, factories for AI and for cars and for lots of other things are being built in this country or planned to be built very shortly. They'll be starting. And where they need great amounts of energy, like for AI, they're going to be, I've given them approval. And Lee Zeldin has given them very fast approval to build their own electric powering plants, and they'll build them with the factory, so we don't have to worry about an ancient grid and all of the other problems, the obstacles people thought we were going to have that would make it impossible. And we're leading AI by a lot, and I think people are very impressed with our country. As they said, the King of Saudi Arabia and various leaders, and just about every leader I can even imagine. We were in the Middle East and Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia. They said, 1 year ago, your country was dead, and today you have the hottest country anywhere in the world, and that's true. So I congratulate everybody in the room that's helped, but we're doing a good job together. I'd like to begin by saying a few words about the unbelievable kind of numbers that we've been putting up. And as I said, the number of 3%, the pace in the second quarter, we smashed all expectations. They thought it would be maybe a little bit less than 2, and it was 3, a little bit more than 3. Consumer spending is up, business investment is way up, domestic manufacturing is way up, real disposable family income is up, and personal savings are up. Other than that, we're not doing so great. We have the hottest country, and I'll tell you, it's a great, we're having a lot of fun with it. At the same time, we dramatically slashed government spending for the second quarter in a row, down nearly 4%, which people were surprised at. We do a lot of cutting also. The private sector has boomed with nearly 600,000 jobs added, way above expectations, while we have reduced the federal workforce by 70,000 jobs. So these are private jobs that are coming back to our country. Federal jobs are being cut. Critics said that our tariffs would hurt the economy, but the data shows the exact opposite, and the exact opposite is happening. The U.S. Treasury has taken in $150 billion from tariffs, and we'll be adding about $200 billion next month for totals that nobody's ever seen before, frankly. And foreign imports were down 30% in the second quarter, while the domestic auto production surged by a stunning 36%. How about that number, Dr. Oz, right? That's good. That's good. We want to do that with your patients, too. We'll have a very healthy, we're going to have a very healthy country. At the same time, inflation continues to fall faster than expectations, and for the 5th consecutive month, core inflation was lower than predicted substantially. This is truly the dawn of the golden age of America. That's what we're in. We want to keep it that way. This afternoon, we're gathered to announce another historic victory for the American people, very important one. Today, the dream of easily transportable electronic medical records finally becomes a reality. I want to thank Secretary Scott Bessent, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for joining us, as well as Administrator of the Centers for Medicine and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, all friends of mine, White House AI and crypto czar David Sachs, and Acting Administrator of DOJ, Amy Gleason, all here. And we have various great senators here, Senator Round, Senator Cassidy, thank you very much for being here and helping out. I also want to thank representatives from Apple, Google, Samsung, Amazon, OpenAI, Anthropic, Epic, Oracle, Athena, Health, Noom, and that's not a bad group of people. Wow. And they're the top people. We don't play games. You know, when you invite people to the White House, the top ones, that's a big net worth sitting in this room right now. Boy, oh boy, we better make sure the room is nice and safe. This is half the net worth of our country. I'm also grateful to be joined by numerous congressmen. I'm not going to name you if you don't mind. I'll probably never get their vote again, but it's too many. Thank you very much for being here. The Congress has been great. Senators have been great, and the congressmen and women have been great. We just passed the most important, I think, look, I can't say most important, but certainly one of the most, but the most consequential and the largest bill in the history of Congress. And I call it the great, big, beautiful bill. We call it different names, but it all means the same thing. For decades, America's healthcare networks have been overdue for a high-tech upgrade, and that's what we're doing. The existing systems are often slow, costly, and incompatible with one another. But with today's announcement, we take a major step to bring healthcare into the digital age, something that is absolutely vital. You got to do it. Moving from clipboards and fax machines into a new era of convenience, profitability, and speed, and frankly, better health for people. Under the leadership of Administrator Oz, we're officially launching the CMS Digital Health Tech Ecosystem to give healthcare providers, insurers, and software companies the tools they need to empower Americans with a 21st century experience on health. The key breakthrough we've made is getting many of the biggest names in the healthcare and technology to agree to industry-wide standards for electronic medical records. All of those great companies that you just heard have gotten together with this group of very brilliant people. I don't know who's more brilliant, them or them. I don't know. Could be them. I hate to tell you. It could very well be them. But I don't know. I'm going to take my team. But the key breakthrough we've made is getting many of the biggest names in healthcare and technology to agree to that those standards of electronic medical records that we talk about and you've heard about for so many years, and now it's happening. This will allow patients to easily transmit information from one doctor to another, even if they're different networks and using different record-keeping systems. No matter what system they use, they're all transferable. The new standards will also make it simple for patients to access their own personal health records. I don't want to see mine, please. I don't want to see. I don't know about you. They have all sorts of things. Sir, they can tell you exactly what your problem is going to be in 6 years. We can do it. You know, they have all these different things. I don't know if they work or not, but I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. If they got a problem, I don't want to know about it right now. But it is amazing what they're doing. I don't know, does it actually work? Can they do that? All right, well then I'm glad I said I don't want to know. But thanks to this announcement, healthcare providers across the country will also finally be able to kill the clipboard. It's an expression that's used, capital, with a capital C, kill the clipboard. Instead of filling out the same tedious paperwork at every medical appointment, patients will simply be able to grant their doctors access to their records at the push of a button, just a button, and you're all set, and all the information the doctor needs will be immediately transmitted. The system will be entirely opt-in, and there will be no centralized government-run database, which everyone is always concerned about. I'm less concerned than anybody. I say whatever it is, but people are very, very concerned about the personal records. They want to keep them very quiet. And that's their choice. I think it's a great thing because it'll be absolutely quiet. Instead, doctors and patients will always remain in control. The benefits to millions of Americans will be enormous. We will save time, we will save money, and most importantly, we'll save lives. It's just going to make people live longer and be a lot healthier. I think that's really what you're looking to do. And now I'd like to ask Secretary Kennedy to say a few words, followed by David Sachs, Dr. Oz, and Amy Gleason. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I just want to begin by making a comment that is irrelevant to what we're gathered here today to talk about. But I've been coming to this building for 65 years, and I have to say that it's never looked better. I've spent some time in the Oval Office, which really it's been transformed. And I was looking at a picture of the Oval Office the other day when I was there, when I was a kid with my uncle. And, you know, it was extraordinary. It's always extraordinary to go into that sacred space. But I have to say that it looked kind of drab in the pictures. And they were black and white pictures, but it looked drab. And it looks the opposite of drab today. And I think, I know all these portraits, I hope you get a chance to look at them when you go out there, that they were handpicked by the president. And many of them hijacked from other agencies that were trying to keep them. But I mean, you know, my uncle, my aunt, Jackie, who were deeply committed to design, to beauty, and who understood that it's important to have our public buildings be beautiful because it inspires us, it elevates the human spirit. It's one of the, it is a template and it's an example, an exemplar for democracy, the releasing through freedoms of the creativity of the human spirit. And this building, of all buildings, should look beautiful. And under your stewardship, it looks extraordinary today. So thank you, Mr. President, for that. About 3 weeks ago, I met with the Indonesian health minister. And Indonesia today is regarded as the highest flourishing nation on earth. Since 1990, it has increased the lifespan of its women by 8 years, of its men by 9 years. There's no country that has a record like that. And there are two major innovations that allowed them to achieve that extraordinary outcome. And one of those was to disincentivize people from eating processed foods. Oh, you are paid not to eat processed foods, and you are penalized for eating processed foods. The other innovation that really transformed Indonesia was allowing people control of their individual health records. He showed me the app that they use that everybody in Indonesia has. And it shows your height, your weight, your blood type, your BMI, your cardiac markers, your diabetes markers, your cholesterol, and any kind of individualized treatments that you had. So if you go to a doctor in another town, he doesn't do what we have to do here, which is to sit there with a clipboard and a fax machine in order to get your health records. It's available, and it allows them to give better treatment. It also allows you to make better choices over your life. And there's other apps like Yaka in Indonesia that allow you to choose good foods when you go to the grocery store. So you can turn your app on your phone and you can get full information of those foods. Well, now if you have your medical records, you can get personalized advice. And that app will also give you advice about a better alternative. So we're going to be able to, we met, Dr. Oz and I met with the former Prime Minister Rudd of Australia just after the election during the transition phase. And he, after his retirement as Prime Minister, he ran a commission to reorganize the Australian health system, and they revolutionized it, and they vastly improved health in Australia. And he said the single thing that he did that was most important to that transformation was the transparency that occurs when people control their own health records. Because it gives people the choice over their own health decisions and over their own lives, and it gives them a sense of responsibility. and allows them to measure the interventions if they change their diet, if they change their exercise. It can show you how many steps you took today. It can tell you if your glucose is spiking. And all of that information will now be available to American citizens. 60 years ago today, we passed Medicaid and Medicare in this country. And we have 60 CEOs in this room of these extraordinary companies, some of which the president just mentioned, that have all agreed voluntarily to start sharing information. President Trump, during his first term, passed the interoperability rule. And it was intended to do this. For 20 years, the federal government has been trying to do this. Everybody recognizes it's absolutely critical innovation for us advancing the health of American citizens, to give them responsibility and to give them control over their own healthcare choices. And unfortunately, you ran out of time the last time around. President Trump gave us instructions that he wanted this to happen within 6 months. We barely made it under the wire thanks to Dr. Oz's leadership. And within 6 months, every American's going to be doing it thanks to the cooperation of the corporate leaders in this room. You know, about 3 months ago, I met with the food executives, and I asked them to voluntarily come forward and get rid of food dyes, of the 9 synthetic petroleum dyes. And this is something, again, the government, Democrats and Republicans have been trying to do for 20 years. And the industry came forward, and now 40% of the food industry in this country has taken the pledge to remove food dyes from all of their foods. That happened because of your leadership, Mr. President. A month ago, we got, after a lot of work by Chris Klump and Dr. Oz and a lot of other people in our agency, we got all the insurance executives to come together in our country and in our offices and agree to get rid of pre-authorization for 80% of the DSM codes. This is a voluntary agreement. 80% of the industry has now agreed to do that. So this is happening because of good leadership. President Trump, you've asked us to think big, you've inspired us to dream big, and you've enabled us to accomplish things that no other president has been able to do. So I want to thank you for your leadership, for allowing this to happen, and with your leadership, we're going to make America healthy again. Now I want to introduce my friend, my colleague, the crypto czar, the acting administrator of Doge, David Sachs.
Thank you, Secretary Kennedy. I recently got a text message from a friend whose wife has been suffering from a chronic illness for something like a decade, and they've been trying to figure out what it is. They've never been able to figure it out. And I just want to read this to you right off my phone. He said, I uploaded my wife's blood work into one of our leading AI engines on Friday. It essentially diagnosed her as having a rare genetic defect that causes bone marrow failure. It's caused every single thing that's happened to her. She has every single symptom. It started at exactly the same age of presentation. It's 10 people out of 1 million. There's absolutely no way this is not it. So wow, it's really an incredible example of what AI is already able to do just today, and we're just getting started. And this was one person putting his wife's data in one of our consumer AI apps, and he's already been able to get that diagnosis, and that's going to help them tremendously. The key here is the unlocking of the data, because the more data that AI has, the better it performs. And so, kudos to Dr. Oz and Secretary Kennedy for this pledge today. They were able to get 60 major companies across different sectors of the economy to agree to unlock their data so that AI can use it to drive better patient outcomes. And this is, all due to your leadership and President Trump's leadership to put the American people's healthcare needs first. And I remember Dr. Oz, he was one of the first people to call me during the transition when the president announced I'd be AI czar, because he wanted to ask me about how AI could better be used in healthcare. So kudos to you, Dr. Oz. Your passion's really incredible. And kudos to you, Secretary Kennedy, your passion as well. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was a big fan of Bobby Kennedy when he was running as a Democrat And I remember thinking,
Gave a lot more money to President Trump.
well, I remember thinking there's this one problem with Bobby Kennedy. He's not a Republican, but thanks to President Trump, I think we fixed that. So, and I think that getting people like Dr. Oz and Bobby Kennedy into the administration is a testament to President Trump and the talent that he's able to attract and pull together, and the partnerships that he's able to forge, because these are people who could be doing other things. So it's really a testament to the great talent that President Trump always attracts around him. Today's pledge by these companies is going to tear down barriers that allows both startups and established firms to compete freely. We're opening up the playing field so that the best tools can scale, compete on value, and discover new methods for making Americans healthy again. Technologies like AI, they do things like they will expand access to care, cut administrative costs, reduce fraud, and deliver better results for patients and doctors. And I want to thank you, President Trump, for your promise to not only make Americans healthy again, but also to ensure that America is a predominant AI superpower. Just last week, you announced a major AI action plan with hundreds of billions of dollars of new investment in AI infrastructure, and also getting red tape out of the way so that we can be the leading country in AI. And it's these life-saving applications that are going to be built on top of all of that infrastructure. So thank you for your leadership in making the United States the #1 country in AI. Thank you, sir.
David, thank you.
And now, Dr. Oz, we'll take it from here.
Mr. President, today we are making American health technology remarkably great again. We've always been at the leadership. David's right, I called him early on after the President offered me the position, and him as well. And we began brainstorming under Secretary Kennedy from day one, appreciated the crisis that we're in and how we needed to address it. So today is a remarkably important day, one that you will remember, I believe, for years to come, for 3 reasons. Yes, it is the 60th birthday of Medicare and Medicaid. The first patient, by the way, was Harry S. Truman. Although Lyndon Johnson signed the legislation 60 years ago today, not far from here. It is not just the ability to bring 60 of the top incumbents and insurgents in health technology, hospital systems, insurance companies, electronic medical record companies, AI companies, the big players. You're all here, and we appreciate that very much. But, Mr. President, you used the power to convene. That's fundamentally what I think the President has been able to offer us. And Secretary Kennedy offered us, as a group, some examples, but there are more to come. And I want to touch on some of these. But first, I've got to do what doctors often have to do, which is to tell you the truth, even if you don't want to hear it. So here goes. These beautiful programs, which are the backbone of the social network, the social support system of this country, the safety net, they're flailing. They're flailing for a bunch of reasons. Medicaid is a unique entity. It has deviated from its original purpose by drift and by design. The One Big Beautiful Bill, the OB3 law, was elegant for that very reason. And President, I don't know if you remember this, I can share this, but he called me once and he was upset at me because I was going too strident at something. And he said, this is about fraud, waste, and abuse. That's what we're interested in doing. And that's exactly what the One Big Beautiful Bill accomplished. And it especially did it to save Medicaid, by putting $200 billion more into it and allocating funds very specifically to use to support rural America. And primarily, some of that money will be used to support digital infrastructure, which is terribly lacking in many parts of the country. The money that's sent from Washington doesn't get to rural America. About 7% of Medicaid dollars get to rural hospitals. We now have an ability to infuse funds through this $50 billion Rural Health Transformation Fund into that system. The gathering today is another example of how we can actually jumpstart that and accelerate it. The other reality is COVID broke the system. It did for many reasons. Medicaid expenses went up 50% in 5 years. Medicare, the trust fund that we met at actually Treasury with Secretary Bessent and Secretary Kennedy as trustees, it goes bankrupt in 2033. And that is actually a conservative estimate. It could go bankrupt as early as 2029. Thankfully, due to the economy, that's not going to happen. But we don't want to have to take that risk, and there's some fundamental changes we need to make accordingly. Now, there's one other big reality about making the system more efficient, which is why what everyone here is talking about is so critical. And let's just pick an average American born in 1964. That average American born in 64 will retire this year at age 61. If just that one group of people born in 64 could work 3 years longer because they're healthy, because they feel like they want to do it, because they feel vital and vigorous, and they're flourishing, just that 1 year working longer is $1 trillion to the U.S. GDP, and is $300 billion of tax revenue to pay for a lot of the problems that people are concerned about. So it's not just keeping people out of the hospital, getting them to thrive and flourish that makes what we're doing so critical today. I think there are a lot of realities to how healthcare has gone. Unfortunately, the system is frozen, and it has been for many reasons, despite efforts in the first administration. It's frozen in time, so it cannot address the quality lags that exist. While Netflix and Airbnb and Uber drivers are racing ahead, making arrangements, identifying the problems that are challenging us in healthcare have become incredibly difficult. You can't make appointments. The average Americans are tired. They're tired of waiting for a doctor's appointment. They're tired of waiting for the surprise of what your hospital bill is going to offer. That's being addressed by one of the president's executive orders. They're tired of waiting for access to their medical records. You own your medical records. They're yours. Why you can't have access to them is a stunning reality in modern-day America. They're also tired of waiting for Washington to take action. And this president early on emphatically stated that wasn't going to happen anymore, and today we made that vision into a reality. And there's a fine line between vision and hallucination. What you did today was show it's a vision, because you share it with us, and we're moving ahead on it. And that's what today's commitments essentially are reflecting. And they are pledges. They're not laws. They're nimble, and they're fast, and they're quick, because the president understands that you, each of you in your own way, understand these needs. And Secretary Kennedy spoke beautifully about the reality of what happens when you actually have electronic records, because what he said is happening in Indonesia, we'll have here. Within a year, on your device, and 91% of Medicaid patients have smartphones. On this device, you'll get insights based on your records if you want. You don't have to take this, but if you desire, Amy Gleason is one of the smartest people I've ever worked with, has built a mechanism to be able to get you that information in a way with all these partners helping, so that you can get nudged to pay attention to what you're eating and avoid processed foods that Secretary Kennedy smartly and wisely highlighted as so dangerous to our well-being. All this, by the way, is that will be at the fingertips. In addition, advice about which doctor to see, when to go see them, nudges, reminding you why I didn't do certain things. If you're a doctor like me, it's a very different story. It's to help you navigate the system better. It's giving you advice, decision support, which is becoming increasingly important as medicine gets more difficult. But I'll tell you the best thing of all, how many of you have been with your doctor telling them something heartfelt, very emotional, and they're looking to the side, typing into their computer, right? It's common. Put your hands up. I just want to see it. Yeah, most everybody. And that's unfortunate, because the whole sacrament, the whole covenant of being with the doctor is having them look you in the eyes and realize you're there for each other. That process is going to go away. We will, within the workflow of doctors, be able, with your help, allow physicians to take care of patients, gather the information while they're doing it, and will destroy the upcoding that has hurt Medicare Advantage and other programs in a similar fashion. The IT infrastructure that's going to change promises to improve a lot of things. We're going to cut fraud, waste, and abuse. Mr. President, we announced with the DOJ 2 weeks ago a $15 billion bust. $15 billion. It's a multinational criminal syndicate based primarily, we believe, in the Soviet Union, in Russia. And what they did was hack using beneficiary numbers into the system. We'll be able to stop that because of a system that Amy has put together, and the wonderful work of Amy Brandt, who has a fraud war room using this kind of technology, because we'll know who you are and who your doctor is, so we can block this. We're going to have remarkable advances in how consumers can use their own records. We'll have beneficiaries be able to get MAHA advice and prevention tips, and even be able to nudge them and reward them perhaps for that. And all this comes back to one fundamental issue, Mr. President, which is leadership. I think 60 people, the biggest, the best, the willing, came forward because of your leadership, because you weren't going to take no for an answer, and they know it. We are building a robust and safe, I emphasize that, safe system. It's going to protect the data better than we could have imagined. We're going to be able to accomplish goals that all of us wished from day one that would be in place. These pledges are now confirmed. They're signed in public. And you have therefore empowered Americans to own their property, which is their medical records. Let me introduce Amy Gleason. She is acting director of DOJ, U.S. Digital Service as well, and was actually the brilliant woman who pulled together the pieces of this puzzle with so many members of the audience. Amy Gleason.
Good afternoon. First, I would like to thank President Trump for his leadership in this area, and Secretary Kennedy and Administrator Oz for driving this work with clarity and urgency. I would also like to thank my colleagues who have been instrumental to this, and we've worked a lot of late nights and hard times on this, and it would not have been possible without them. I want to start today with my daughter Morgan, who's here in the audience. If you'd please stand up. I am so inspired and energized by your strength every day. And we also have two other patients here, Randy and Tom, who have been very inspiring. Thank you for being here today. You're why this all matters. Let me start talking about my daughter's history. So 15 years ago, she was diagnosed with a rare disease. She was 11 years old, and she started showing mysterious symptoms. Over the last year and a half after that, she saw the country's best doctors, but she still continued to get worse. At some point, she couldn't stand up off the floor or walk up the stairs, and we still had no answers. I carried a binder of paper records to every doctor's appointment so that I could keep them aligned. And I truly believe that if one of those doctors had been able to see her whole history, they would have diagnosed her faster. And if we had just had today's AI, then they could have connected the dots that the humans missed. Today, Morgan takes 21 pills a day, gets 2 infusions a month, and has over 40 patient portals. Her disease is very rare, but her experience, it's very common. And that is what we're here to fix today. Too many patients are forced to remember all the doctors that they've been to and log into portal after portal, repeating their story at every visit, and they don't have the digital tools to help them stay well. Meanwhile, every other part of our life is digital. I can order groceries and have them delivered in minutes. I get personalized recommendations on my other apps. But in healthcare, we still see it on paper and manual situations. But today, thanks to President Trump, we're changing that. Over 15 years, we've tried to regulate our way to a better outcome. And we have gotten a path forward, but they have not delivered the modern healthcare experience that Americans expect and deserve. I'm so proud today that these 60 companies have voluntarily stepped forward to make a pledge to take action and to join us to say, we're ready, let's fix this, we're in. We're trying something different. It's not regulation or rulemaking. This is a voluntary alignment around a shared vision, a commitment to work across boundaries, across competitors, and across silos. We're bringing together data sharing networks, electronic medical records, doctors, health systems, payers, and app developers. And we're asking one simple question: what can we do right now to make this work for patients? The companies pledging today are agreeing to collaborate, even with their direct competitors, because they know we can't keep kicking the can down the road. We have to stop talking about data interoperability and make the data flow. Here's something important. Not all patients will want these tools. Some will rely on their caregivers, and others will rely on their doctors, so they don't have to carry it themselves. But no matter how people engage, we must make sure it works for everyone. CMS is doing its part. We're clearing the path for innovation by building the long overdue National Provider Directory, a kind of digital map for healthcare that connects systems in real time and helps patients get more coordinated care. We're also modernizing Medicare.gov to feel more seamless and smart like other apps we use. But the government can't do this and shouldn't do it alone. These tools we need to make daily decisions must come from the private sector, and that's why this is so important. So let me tell you what this might look like after our collaborative effort. So Morgan, in 6 months from now, might show up to her doctor's appointment, and instead of filling out a clipboard with her 21 medications, 12 doctors, and her entire medical history, she can just pull out her phone and tap or scan a QR code and seamlessly transfer her digital insurance card, her verified medical record, and a digital summary that could help her provider get up to speed faster. We call this kill the clipboard, as President Trump said. After the visit, Morgan opens her AI assistant, a tool that she has authorized to access her records, and asks, what did the doctor say today? What did these results mean? What should I watch for now? And the assistant responds using her actual health history, explains her care plan in plain language, helps her track her symptoms, and even schedules follow-up visits if she needs them. And lastly, she has a new favorite app that helps her manage her chronic conditions, because for years, Morgan has said what other patients say: I only see a doctor a few days a year, but I live with this disease every day. Today, we're starting with apps that can support patients 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. They don't replace doctors, they just fill in the gap between visits so that care is continuous and not episodic. So what makes this effort different? Today, we have all these apps that want to provide these services, but they can't get the data because it is so hard for patients to access their records. But today, we have 18 network companies who are here pledging to fix the infrastructure that makes this possible. They're doing this through modern data sharing networks that removes the burden on patients and providers and makes it available in real time using modern identity, just like when you check in at the airport. These honor patient privacy and transparency, and most importantly, it's a movement to work together to remove the friction that's holding us back. Because access to information shouldn't be a luxury, it should be a standard. So for all the Morgans out there, come join this movement with us at cms.gov. Let's kill the clipboard and axe the facts. Let's help make health tech great again. Or in this case, maybe it's for the first time. Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you very much. That was great. And hello. You look very, very healthy to me. You look really great. So just, I want to thank all of the companies that are here. These are big names, great people. And now you're doing something that's so important for our country, really for the world. It's beyond our country, I suspect. It's really for the world. So just keep it up. And you've hit new highs almost virtually every day for the last few months. And that makes your job probably a little bit easier. You're under very little stress. But someday you might have a little bit, but you're not going to have much. I think we're really going to great heights. But I just want to thank everybody, political people and the teachers and the companies and all of our cabinet. I even see Newt. Do I see Newt? I see Newt. Look at him. He's such a handsome man. He's a healthy man. We don't have to do any tests on him. But good to see you, Newt. But I just want to thank everybody. This is a very big undertaking, and it's a very serious undertaking. It's going to make a lot of people lead a much better life. Thank you all very much for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call you by MFN?
Yeah.
Can we start the...
Nice to see you. How are you? We have a lot of athletic talent and great people behind me. And they're going to do some very important things for our country. Nobody knows LT, right? LT, greatest ever. Lawrence Taylor. You look good. You could play right now, I think, LT. You only look that way. Well, I'm delighted to be here with some of the truly great sports legends of all time as we formally announce the newest members of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. This is an important step in our mission to make America healthy again. It's something that's very important, what we're doing, very important. Dating back to the administration of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, this council has championed the vigor and strength and vitality of the American people. Today, we continue that very proud tradition. This group is led by two-time major champion and one of the greatest players in the world, one of the highest ranked, and he just had a phenomenal Open Championship, as you probably saw, shooting one round that wasn't so good, and then he came back with about a 65 or something. He was getting a birdie on every hole. They were worried he might not make the cut, and he made the cut by about 200 strokes. It was pretty amazing. And he had a great week, actually. And he's also the longest hitter of a golf ball, I think ever, but, you know, they say ever. I would say ever. And the longest in the world today, and it's Bryson DeChambeau. He's a great guy, been my friend for a long time. And from his storied amateur career, where he won the U.S. Amateur, I think once or twice. Did you win it?
It was once, and then the NCAAs as well.
Okay, you won a lot of other championships. but U.S. amateur champion. And then, as you know, he won at Winged Foot, won the U.S. Open in Pinehurst. And Bryson has always been a phenomenal ambassador to sports and to golf, but generally to life, in my opinion. He's a smart guy and a good guy, great guy, loves our country. We're also pleased to be joined by Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. Bobby, you do a great job. He's got some big things happening, and he's got some big statements to be made very shortly in terms of, over the next few months, in terms of what they've been doing and finding answers to some very, very important questions. Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, who's phenomenal, wherever you may be, Linda. Hi, Linda. What are you doing back there? And look, you've been reading about her exploits and the job that she's been doing, and we're very proud of her. Council Executive Director, Catherine Granito. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great job. And several other new members of the council, including J.D. is here, our fantastic vice president, and Scott Bessent, and we're making a lot of deals. We're making deals for trillions and trillions. Nobody's ever seen anything quite like it. We just made a couple of others a little while ago. I don't know if you'd be interested right now. I won't even bother telling you. This is about sports and about health. One of the best defensive players ever, I think probably acknowledged to be the greatest defensive player in the history of the NFL, a friend of mine for a long time. Too long, right, Lawrence? Lawrence Taylor, he's an incredible guy. And just been my friend a long time, haven't we? Huh? Knew him forever. One of the most accurate kickers in NFL history, a young guy still. He can kick it long. I think I guess he's considered the best there is in the business, Harrison Butker. So, Harrison, where are you, Harrison? He's a handsome guy, by the way. It's usually not my thing, but he is a good-looking sucker. One of the truly greatest golfers ever to play on the LPGA Tour. A lot of people say the greatest female player ever, and a lot of people would say just one of the best players ever. She's phenomenal. I've played a lot of golf with Annika Sorenstam, and she's amazing. Just had an really storied career. Hall of Famer, easily a Hall of Famer, by the way, right at the top of the list. So it's great to have you with us, Annika, and say hello to the family. Then she was here not so long ago with Gary Player, where she got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and so did he. He's won 168 tournaments and 18 majors, 9-9, and she's the same in terms of the women's game. But that was a great time. It was a great honor to give it to you. You really deserved it. It's the highest medal you can get outside of the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's the military version, and the other is the Presidential Medal, and you got it. So thank you very much. 14-time WWE World Champion, and he's a man who you're not going to mess around with. Even Bryson said, I think I'll take a pass on him, right? You're going to take. And he's another one who's been my friend for a long time. He's really an amazing athlete, Triple H. Triple H, here he is. Oh, that's still very strong. He's a strong guy. And it's great to have you. And you felt very strongly about this, about the council. 100%. Yep. Well, it's a great honor to have you. Offensive lineman, NFL, very respected, very smart, Cody Campbell. Thank you, Cody, very much. Thank you very much. In addition to the people here, we have other council members that want to just pay their respects. One of the greatest players and athletes ever. You could say, when you look at records, there's probably nothing like it. Tiger and Jack. This is Jack. Tiger was here not so long ago getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom also. He's a fantastic guy. And on the council, we have Jack Nicklaus, and he sends his regards. We have Gary Player, one of the greats. Nellie Corder, who's a phenomenal young, I think you'd say great young player. Annika, right? She's a fantastic person, too. NFL icons, Tony Romo, also a great football player. Quarterback, also a great golfer. Nick Bosa, who's, you know him, he's a modern-day version of Lawrence. What do you think? He's pretty good, right, Lawrence? Pretty good. He is. Saquon Barkley was on the council. And Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback, who is really, he's been fantastic. He's been, when he's not injured, he's great. He's got to stay healthy, but he's a great guy. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell is on the commission, NFL Commissioner Gary Bettman, and the great one, Wayne Gretzky, is on, and a man who also received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, Mariano Rivera. And when I looked at his record, it was unbelievable. The Sandman, my wife said, why do they keep playing the Sandman when he walks in? And I said, because he just puts the batter to sleep. He was great. When you look at his record compared to second, and Raleigh Fingers was great, and he was really great. But when you look at the record, boy, Mariano had a record. I've never seen anything like it. He was so high up. The order that I'll sign today in a few moments directs the council to develop strategies to improve America's physical fitness and renew the American spirit, excellence, competitiveness, and sportsmanship. To that end, I'm pleased to announce that we're officially restoring the Presidential Fitness Test and the Presidential Fitness Award, and it's going to be a very big thing. From the late 1950s until the 2013, graduate scholars all across our country competed against each other in the Presidential Fitness Test, and it was a big deal. This was a wonderful tradition, and we're bringing it back. I think Bryson and everybody here wanted to see if we could bring that back, and it's turned out to be very popular to do. My administration's also pressing forward with the important reforms in sports and athletics, and the group behind me and the others that I mentioned and others that I've asked to join. We have many great athletes I've asked to join the council, and we're going to let some of them come in. But they're going to also be working on college football in terms of what happened. It's a mess. What happened? It's what they're doing with college football, and the fans are upset about it, and players are being taken from team after team and being traded around like playing cards, and a lot of money's passing, and nobody knows what's happening. So these people behind me are going to be very much involved in figuring that whole thing out and working on it and trying to bring some sanity to that incredible, not only the football, college sports, very, very bad for women. Very bad what's happening, because now all of a sudden there's no women that are able to get the money that they're talking about. You know, it seems to be going mostly to football, some basketball, and women's sports are being totally decimated. We know that, Annika, you know, with this. It's all going into football, and some to basketball, and everything else is being left behind. And women are being left behind, and lesser sports are being left behind, and the Olympics is being decimated because that was like training for the Olympics, and now we're not going to have that many of those sports left. The smaller sports, they're almost going to be completely wiped out. This is crazy what's going on. We banned men from competing in women's sports, and last week the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee announced that they will be complying with that order, so there won't be men playing in women's sports. That seemed like an easy one. They say it's an 80-20 issue during the campaign. I said, no, that's not 80-20. That's 97-3. Maybe it's 98-2, perhaps. And last Thursday, we terminated third-party pay-for-play schemes in collegiate athletics and effectively we saved college sports, but now we have to heal it, because it's really a mess. It's a real mess. This council will play an important role in shaping these new policies and ensuring that we preserve the American athletic tradition for many generations to come. And in the years ahead, we'll have the chance to showcase our nation's athletic dominance in the world stage as we host the America 250. So we have America 250, and we have, it's going to be incredible, the Patriot Games. But we have the Ryder Cup, we have the President's Cup, we have the 2026 FIFA World Cup. So we have the World Cup here, we have the 2028 Olympics. So when they cheated on the election and they picked somebody that wasn't supposed to be there, I was very upset before that, because I got the Olympics and I got the World Cup. I was the one that did it. I can't say I got America 250. It just happened to be 200. I'd like to take credit for that, but I don't think I'll be able to. But we have a big thing coming up. But I was very upset because I got them, and it was skipped an election season, and so it took place in the next term after the term that we were supposed to have. And I was extremely angry. And then when I won, I said, wait a minute, I think I just picked up the Olympics and I just picked up the World Cup. So it worked out sort of cool. But I want to, again, thank everybody in the council. They want to work too. These are people that really, we only do it by request. And people, they want to work and they want to make things better. And I hope they can make college sports better. They can heal it. They can find a solution. It's not going to be that easy. But you have a lot of smart people. So I'd like to begin by introducing Bryson to say a few words, and then we'll have Triple H, and we'll have a couple of other people say something, and then I'm going to sign that good-looking couple of pieces of paper, and it means a lot. It's going to be a very important council, and thank you all for being here. Bryson, please.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. And first off, I'd like to say thank you to President Trump and Vice President Vance for your support and this initiative and council. And to be honest, I never would have thought that this opportunity would have been here right at our doorstep. We have an opportunity at being the 70th anniversary of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition to literally change the fabric of kids' lives. And our first initiative is to bring back and reignite the President's Fitness Test, and then also reestablish some key other metrics on guidelines around building some communities, and also, again, with the President's initiatives around college, we think we can help in that regard too. But we've got a great established council with us that we believe we can change the fabric of our communities and kids' livelihoods for the future generations that are to come. I can't thank you guys enough, and looking forward to making massive changes in kids' lives and in our America's future. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say the same. Thank you to President Trump. Thank you for this honor. I'm humbled by it. I'm truly honored to be on this. Vice President Vance, thank you very much. Secretary Kennedy, truly appreciate all that everybody is doing for the health and wellness of the entire country. For me, since I was 14, this has been such an important part of my life. Health, fitness, sports, nutrition, all of it. I think learning that at a young age sets you up for success in life. And without it, you're at a lesser place for it. So I look forward to the opportunity to do this. I look forward to the opportunity to help make our youth healthy, help get them engaged in sports, and let them learn what it takes to be successful in life. So thank you very much for the honor. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you. Bobby, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. In December of 1960, a month after he won the election, my uncle, who was about to be president, wrote an article for Sports Illustrated called The Soft American, and he was lamenting the fact that America had prided itself on its beef jerky toughness, and that we were losing that. We were falling behind Europeans, we were falling behind other nations, and he was signaling with that article that he was going to make physical fitness of our kids the centerpiece of his administration. And I'm so grateful to President Trump for bringing back this tradition. I was talking to Paul before we went in here. We were part of the Council on Physical Fitness when we were kids. And you had to do sit-ups, you had to do pull-ups, you had to do shuttle runs, you had to do 1-mile runs. And they awarded the top 15% with a patch and with recognition and with certificates. And for me, it was a huge item of pride when I was growing up. And we need to reinstill that spirit of competition and that spirit and that commitment to nutrition and physical fitness. And I'm so grateful to President Trump for your leadership in bringing this back for our country.
Thank you very much. Honored representing the great women in sports, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, Vice President Vance. This is truly an honor. I want to thank the the team behind me here for giving us trust to be able to do this. Sport has always been part of my life, and the importance of living a healthy, active lifestyle cannot be any more important than nowadays. So thank you for the trust, and I can't wait to get to work to make a difference in kids' lives, but also in people's lives. I think the time is so important. Obesity is the highest it's ever been. Mental health, as we all know, the need ought to be tackled. So thank you for the trust, and look forward to going to work with the team behind me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nelson. Lawrence, you want to say a few words? Come on up. Come on. He's a little shy, but once he gets going, nobody can stop.
Oh, no, that don't stop. I'm just proud to be on this team. I don't know why. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing, but I'm here to serve, and I'm here to serve you. Okay, so I'm going to do the best I can for as long as I can. Thank you very much.
Nobody like him. Come on, young superstar.
Obviously very excited to be here. Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to serve on the council. Just excited to do my part to help make America healthy again, to help our youth be healthy and thrive and grow up and be great citizens of this country and be great family members and contribute to this great country. And I think you have to be strong in mind, in body, and soul. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. JD?
Okay, sure, sir. Well, thank you all, and thanks to the president for setting up this important commission. Thanks to all the great athletes for lending their credibility to it. I think all of us who have young kids at home just know that kids are healthier, they're happier, they do better when they're out there, they're being active, they're playing in sports, they're hanging out with their friends. I think all of us have thought at one point in the last few years that kids spend a little too much time on their phones, maybe a little bit too much time in front of the TV, and we just want kids to do better. We want them to be healthier, we want them to be happier, and we know that getting out there, playing in sports, and being active and healthy and physically fit is a critical part of this. So all due credit to the President and Secretary Kennedy's leadership. This is all about just making our kids better citizens, better people, and happier in their daily lives. And I think this is a great team to get it accomplished. Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's sign this. Linda, come on. Let's sign this. Belinda. Yeah, she's doing pretty well, right? Huh? That is amazing. Good job. Okay, we got it. I think we're good. Okay, we'll pass them around, please. Okay, you good? Okay. That is not signed with an auto pen. There's no auto pen. We don't want auto pens in the White House. Okay? Any questions, please? About, I think probably.
What has sports meant to you? And did you have a sports hero growing up?
Maybe Lawrence Taylor. I don't know. It could be Lawrence. Or I know him so well. Well, a lot of sports heroes. It meant a lot. I was always a person that loved playing sports. I was good at sports. When you were really focused on sports, you thought about nothing else. There was nothing else outside. It kept you. And to an extent, this is one of the reasons I like golf. You get away for a couple of hours. I play quickly and get through it. And for 2 hours, you're not thinking about all of the nonsense and all of the important things, frankly, but it cleans your mind. No, I think sports is so important. I think what this council is doing is going to be very important. And it gives you a little exercise, sometimes a lot of exercise. It's a great thing. It's a great thing. Sports are, you learn about people and you learn about how people compete. Now, it doesn't mean that if somebody's not a good athlete, a lot of people just are not good athletes, so they can't compete. But you learn about people playing sports and playing sports with and against some. So I've always loved it. It's been very important to me. These people are, inspirations. These are the top people in their individual sports. The council itself, I mean, they have some of the greatest champions, for the most part, the greatest champions in their sport. So they really understand sports, and understanding it's very important. Thank you for the question. Yeah, please. please, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. President, can you talk about your plans for the new ballroom that was announced today?
Yeah.
The $200 million, that's going to be paid for by yourself? as
By
well
me,
as
yeah.
Private donations?
It's a private thing, yeah. I'll do it, and we'll probably have some donors or whatever, but it's about 200 million. So we've been planning it for a long time. They've wanted a ballroom at the White House for more than 150 years, but there's never been a president that was good at ballrooms. I'm really good. In fact, I looked at one that we just built in Turnberry in Scotland, and it's incredible. We're good at building. I'm good at building things, and we'll get it built quickly and on time. It'll be beautiful, top of the line. We've retained the best architects and engineers, everything else. It'll be built over on the east side, and it will be beautiful. It'll be views of the Washington Monument. It won't interfere with the current building. It won't be. It'll be near it, but not touching it, and pays total respect to the existing building, which I'm the biggest fan of. It's my favorite. It's my favorite place. I love it. But they've wanted it, and you know, when they have big events, you entertain the president of China or the president of any place, and you have big crowds. They've always had to get a tent. And you've probably been to some of them, Bobby. When it rains, it's a disaster. And the tent's 100 yards. That's more than a football field away from the main entrance. And people are schlopping down to the tent. It's not a pretty sight. The women with their lovely evening gowns, all of their hair all done, and they're a mess by the time they get. And they've always wanted to have it. And I said, you know, in the first term, I said, you know, if I get another shot at this, I'm going to do a ballroom. I was pretty busy in the first because I was running the country, and I was also fighting for survival with all of the lunatics I had to beat. But it worked out, obviously, it worked out very well because here we are. But I always said I was going to do something about the ballroom because they should have one. So we'll be leaving it. It'll be a great legacy project, and I think it'll be special. You saw some renderings of the initial. I think it'll be really beautiful. No government dollars, no.
Extremely busy week between this executive order, trade, Russia, Gaza, but also the family of Virginia Giuffre released a statement overnight in response to some of the comments that you made this week. You said that Jeffrey Epstein stole people from Mar-a-Lago. At the time, did you know why he was taking those young women, including Virginia?
No, I didn't know. I mean, I would figure it was ABC fake news that would ask that question, one of the worst. But no, I don't know really why. But I said, if he's taking anybody from Mar-a-Lago, he's hiring or whatever he's doing. I didn't like it, and we threw him out. We said we don't want him, you know, at the place. This is a story that's been known for many years, as you know. But it's, I didn't like it that he was doing that. Yeah, please. Say it again.
If Canada moves forward with recognizing the Palestinian state, is that a deal breaker?
Well, we're going to see. No, I didn't like what they said, but you know, that's their opinion. I didn't like that. Not a deal breaker, but we haven't spoken to Canada today. He's called, and we'll see. But we have made a few deals today that are excellent deals for the country. You know, we're taking in literally trillions of dollars for the country. This is making our country very rich and respected again. We have, you know, I tell these people, and I say it as much as I have to say it, but every leader, I was at NATO, and I was in the Middle East with the three great countries, three great leaders, Qatar, you know, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and everybody said the same thing. All of the NATO countries, essentially, they said that we were a dead country. 1 year ago, we were a dead country. Now we're the hottest country in the world. Look at you people. We're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're doing great. Yeah, do you have a...
Canada currently. What's the holdup with the negotiations with Canada?
Well, they have to pay a fair rate. That's all. It's very simple. They have been charging very, very high tariffs to our farmers, some over 200%. And they've been treating our farmers very badly. They've been treating our country very badly for years. And look, we like Canada. I love Canada. I have so many friends in Canada. But they've been very poorly led. They've been very, very poorly led. And all we want is fairness for our country. That's all. You know, they want to be under the, as we call it, the Golden Dome. And I said, well, you know, you're going to have to pay for that. They want a lot of things from our country, and for years we did it. We basically protect them with our military. They spend very little money on their military, as you know. Not an acceptable amount of money. Yeah, please.
Thanks a lot, Mr. President. Your tariffs policy goes into effect tomorrow.
Yeah.
As you know, authority to unilaterally impose those tariffs. I'm not going to get you to weigh in on the legal arguments, but you're weighing your decision to do that, your authority to do that, based on a 1977 law that's never been invoked before. Why didn't you invoke this
Well, we've
law?
been winning all along, just so you
I
know.
just want to ask you, why didn't you invoke this law in your first term? You could have taken in billions upon billions of dollars in your first term, but you waited until your second
Yeah,
term.
because in my first term, I was fighting lunatics like you who were trying to do things incorrectly and inappropriately to a president that was duly elected. And we did do certain tariffs in the first term. If you look at China, we took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. But when COVID came, the last thing I was going to do is tell France and Italy and Spain and a couple of other countries that we're going to hit you with tariffs. We had to fight the COVID situation when that came. But if you look at my first term, we took in hundreds of billions of dollars worth of tariffs, but you people didn't cover it very well. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm representing the foreign policy today. I'm asking you two questions on foreign policy. The first one, do you plan to re-engage diplomatically with Iran, go with direct talks with them, or are you happy with the current situation, having no deal with Iran?
Well, Iran has been acting very badly. They were decimated. Their nuclear capability, that potential, which could have happened within 3 or 4 weeks, was decimated. It's been obliterated. The Atomic Energy Commission said the place is just decimated. Now they can start again, but they'd start in different sites because they were hit. I tell you what, the job these pilots did with their B-2 bombers, those unbelievable machines, they traveled 36 hours without stop. And they hit every single target. Every bomb hit they went right down to the chutes. And then, as you know, we shot 30 rockets from submarines that were hundreds of miles away, and they hit every target. So they can start again, but they haven't been saying the right thing. I will say Iran has not been saying the right thing. They have not been speaking nicely, and they should be. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, not lowering interest rates again. Many people say that he's playing politics with the futures of millions.
Well, he is. We call him Too Late. He's Too Late. It's his new nickname. He's Too Late, pal. He's terrible, the Federal Reserve Chairman. Not only that, he's building a building. He's at $2.9 billion. It's actually 3.1 if you include other areas that are essentially the same thing. Way over budget, has no idea what he's doing. And I would say he's probably good at that compared to what he does with interest rates. But, you know, we have him there, and it was a mistake. I put him in, and then Biden extended him. And Biden only extended him because he knew I couldn't stand him. And that turned out to be not a good thing for Biden. Although he did lower interest rates just prior to the election. Didn't work out too well for them. But he did lower them pretty substantially just prior to the election. No, he's a political hack, not very good. He's not a smart guy, Brian.
Mr. President, sports fans have been very supportive. They go back to the original names of Cleveland Indians, the Washington Redskins.
Oh, I love that. Love the sound of that.
Well,
I do the Washington Redskins. I think they should do it. I told the mayor and I told people that they should bring back the name. If they bring back the name, you'll have a lot of excitement. And, I mean, Cleveland Indians, how about that? That was an original franchise, 1903 or something, 1906, an original, the Cleveland Indians. And what do? They changed the name from Indians. What's wrong with the word Indian? You know who is upset about it? The Indians are upset about it. They're upset about Redskins, too. So Redskins, I guess you'd say it was a little bit lesser of a case, but people want to see the Redskins, and the Indians want to see the Redskins back. No, I recommend it. I was asked that question the other day. The Washington Redskins, it's a fabled franchise. And now, I don't even know what the hell their last name is. What are they, Commanders or something? Is it Commanders? It's not a good name. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, not you. You.
Mr. President, Kamala Harris, as you know, is not running for governor of California. She's not going to do it. What do you see in her political future, sir?
Well, she can't speak. She can't talk. She can't do an interview. I thought it was a very strange campaign that we had. But, you know, I had two of them. We were up by like this massive number of points on Biden, and they said, let's change to Kamala. Nobody knew who Kamala was. Nobody knew her last name, Harris. They said, we're going to get Vice President Harris. Everyone said, who the hell is Harris? They only knew her by the first name. But no, I thought she was a terrible candidate. Look, don't forget, she didn't really get the nomination. I mean, that whole nomination was strange. She was the first one out. You know, she took a good amount of points with her when she announced, but nobody knew her. And once they got to know her, she dropped out very shortly after she started. And she started with a pretty good, you know, she was like in second or third place. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't call her a skilled politician. Would you?
She's also coming out with a book. Any plans to buy it?
I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm going to buy it. I'd love to see it. No. I'd find it. Look, I find everything in politics interesting. I sort of enjoy politics. She wasn't a skilled person. You know, you have skilled politicians, really skilled politicians, and then you have some that aren't. And she was put in a very tough position, I think. She did have a 6-week honeymoon. They were told me, the pros said, you know what, she's going to have a 6-week, and she did. She was like untouchable in terms of everybody thought great. But she didn't do any interviews or anything, which was strange. Not even friendly interviews with friendly reporters like her right there, a really friendly reporter. And you know what happened? People said, what's wrong with her? Why isn't she doing? She made a mistake. She should have done interviews. She didn't run a great campaign, but we beat Biden, and then we had to beat, nobody's beaten two. I had to beat two. That's like Dana White, the great Dana White has a fight, and he has a fighter that's getting the hell knocked out of him. They say, well, let's take him out and put somebody else in. Didn't seem fair to me at the time, but where are we? We're in the White House. So, I mean, you know, so it worked out.
If I may, sir, a very serious question here. Russia today hit Kyiv with missiles and drones, more than 100 people kidnapped.
I think it's Russia, I think it's disgusting what they're doing. I think it's disgusting. This is Biden's war. It's not my war. But I said if I get in, I'll try and get the thing stopped. But I think what Russia's doing is very sad. A lot of Russians are dying. You have a lot of Russians. More Russians are dying. But Russians are dying. Ukrainians are dying. You know, the United States isn't really involved in that war. It shouldn't be. And by the way, I made a deal with NATO where NATO pays us for everything that we send. We send them ammunition, missiles, etc. And we're not paying anything for that war. But I will tell you this, it should be stopped. It's a disgrace. And the ones that are dying they're losing 7,000 now. It was 5,000. They're losing now 7,000 soldiers a week, Ukrainian soldiers and Russian soldiers. And they're also losing people now in the towns and cities because Putin's hitting them with rockets. No, I think it's disgraceful. Yeah, we have about 8 days. Yeah, we're going to put sanctions. I don't know that sanctions bother him. You know, they know about sanctions. I know better than anybody about sanctions and tariffs and everything else. I don't know if that has any effect, but we're going to do it. Europe is extremely upset. But this is a war that should have never happened. This is a war that wouldn't have happened if I were president. And this is Biden's war. This was a stupid war to get into. Should have never gotten into this war. Yeah, going to Israel, and then he's going to Russia, believe it or not.
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has said that what is occurring there is a genocide. Do you agree?
Oh, it's terrible what's occurring there, yeah. It's a terrible thing. People are very hungry. You know, the United States gave $60 million for food, and it's a shame because nobody, you know, I don't see the results of it, and we gave it to people that in theory are watching over it fairly closely. We wanted Israel to watch over it. Part of the problem is Hamas is taking the money and they're taking the food. But we gave $60 million a couple of weeks ago. Nobody said anything about it. Nobody said thank you, but I didn't need the thank you. I just wanted the people to get fed. And we're helping out financially with that situation. It's a terrible situation. So just to conclude, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank you for being here. This is a great group of people, and it's a good feeling. You know, when we first came to office, this country was really in trouble, and now we're rich as hell, and we're doing amazing things, and we really are. We're the hottest country in the world, and I like that. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.